Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. This is story about what if Uzumaki decides that he can no longer hide her true self after her battle with Haku on the bridge. Part 1. Before I start, please do support for more amazing content and comments for part 2. Do consider to subscribe my channel and share my video to your friends and check out the description as well. Let's start the video. Malicious red chakra swirled violently around a boy covered in cuts and needles who kneeled over his fallen comrade in a dome of ice mirrors. The chakra violently whipped around and tore at the ground. He shook as he placed his hands on his friends within the mirrors. A masked boy watched him in surprise. Never before had he felt such evil chakra erupt from a person before. This chakra, he thought, somewhat shaken by it. Suddenly, the trapped boy began to stand as the senbon in his back and legs were pushed out. Standing up fully, a larger burst of the evil chakra came from him and began to take on the shape of a horrifying canine face. That's impossible. For chakra to change like this and in such a short amount of time, thought the boy in the ice mirrors. And did such an evil chakra shocked, he watched as all the visible wounds on the other boy rapidly healed right before his eyes. The wounds on his body. They are completely healing themselves. What is this boy truly? The boy on the ground suddenly turned his head and looked at the other. His orange hair had grown wild and a feral look controlled his features. For a moment the two just stared before he began to growl and charge the ice mirrors. The boy in the mirrors prepped himself with senbon in each hand and flew at the other boy to hit him. The feral boy spun rapidly out of range of the attack. The masked kid turned to quickly hide in another mirror but was slammed by the feral boy's clawed hands, being tossed backwards. The feral boy screamed and slammed down his fist. Chakra erupted from his fist and slowly began thinning the ice with its heat. Standing, the masked child tried to jump back as he suddenly found his hand grasped by the other boy. Looking up with more hate than the masked boy thought possible, the feral child smashed his fist into his face. Flying backwards, the masked boy flew through his now weakened ice mirrors as his mask cracked down the middle. As he slid across the ground of the bridge they were on, his dome of ice mirrors fell to pieces. The feral boy growled as he noticed the other boy was beginning to stand up after he stopped sliding. Zabuza-san, the boy charged the other as he stood there motionless. I cannot defeat this boy. Half of his mask falls to the ground as the boy comes closer and jumped into the sky, with his hair lengthening and flowing freely behind him with a red ribbon floating away from it. Zabuza-san, I'm sorry. The boy closed his eyes as the last of his mask falls away. Awaiting an impact that never came. Opening his eyes, he found the other boy's fist stopped just inches from his face. Why did you stop? He whispered solemnly. The oppressive energy from the other child slowly faded away. I killed your precious friend, yet you can't kill me. Why? Sighing, the boy slowly pulled back his fist. He looked into the other kid's face as he stood straight up, his voice becoming surprisingly feminine. Truthfully, I feel no anger over Sasuke dying. I was more angry over how weak I felt when you did killed him. The boy looked over at his fallen comrade full of needles from the boy before him. He is a friend of sorts, but he isn't one of the few precious people to me. Not truly anyway. He looked into the boy's eyes that had no fight left in them. Zabuza is your precious person, right, Haku? Why is that? The beaten boy, now known as Haku, looked back into the other boy's eyes. He told his story of how life was for him and Kiri. Explaining how his Kekkei Genkai made him a monster in the eyes of his village due to the civil war that broke out. How he one day ended up having to kill his own father to escape with his own life. He smiled when he told how Zabuza found him, a useless broken child with no reason to live. He gave me a reason to live. To live for him. To help him fight his battles to the end. No matter what the cost or reason. That is what makes him so precious to me. So please kill me. The boy tilted his head as he looked at Haku. Why would you want me to do that? He questioned. I thought you wanted to live for that man. What good would killing you do? Haku shook his head. I do wish to live for Zabuza-san, but I am nothing more than his pawn. His tool to use as he sees fit. My only purpose is to fulfill his will as best as I can until I am no longer needed by him. Now I am broken. He has no purpose for a broken tool, thus I have no purpose to continue living. Even if I wasn't his tool, he is like a father to me. Someone I will always stand beside. So please, kill me here and now. The boy looked at him sadly. That is sad to hear, Haku, but I won't kill you. If you want to die then kill yourself, but I won't be your killer. A sound suddenly filled the air like 1,000 birds were for some reason chirping, making Haku look towards the sound's direction of origin. I know you won't be here much longer, but I trust you, you know. You are purer than anyone else I have ever known in my entire life. You are so honest with yourself and others. I just wanted to let you know that. Haku looked at the boy before disappearing into an ice mirror he made suddenly. The boy was left standing alone as he looked into the thick mist aimlessly. The sound of the birds quickly disappeared with a bursting sound that soon brought a stale silence. For a moment nothing happened as he stood there motionlessly until a scent hit him. Blood. The strong scent of copper filled the air as he reached up to his hair and ran a hand all the way down it to the small of his back. He went so far as to even die for that one precious person in his life. Would I do that for anyone on this team? Could I really take a certain death attack for either Sasuke or Sakura so that they could live on to fight again? No. No, I couldn't do something like that. AM Nichin, Old Man Tucci, Iruka-sensei, and Old Man Hokage, yes. Maybe even Kakashi-sensei, but not the other two people on this team. I wonder where the ribbon holding up my hair go off to. Slowly the mist began to thin out as a clapping sound could be heard at the unfinished end of the bridge. As the mist cleared, the boy could see his sensei Kakashi standing before Zabuza, his back was turned to him. Further back towards the beginning of the bridge, his teammate Sakura stood in front of Tazuna, the bridge builder, and the entire reason everyone was there. Sakura could be heard gasping in horror as she noticed Sasuke's downed body surrounded by melted water, broken ice shards, and needles. She quickly ran over to his body with Tazuna following her and steadily cried over Sasuke's body as Tazuna got a good look at the life a shinobi in Kunoichi lived. Down at the unfinished end of the bridge, a short man in a business suit with grey hair, a scrunchy face, and glasses on, stood with a large group of bandits behind him. He was clapping with a comical smile on his face and a cane tucked under his arm. Well. They call you a demon, but all I see is pathetic excuse for a missing nin. You let some scarecrow and a bunch of snot-nosed brats beat you like this. A complete waste of my money. Well, at least I never planned to pay you in the first place. Zabuza's eyes narrowed in anger as he turned his head slightly to Kakashi. It seems our business with each other is done, Kakashi. I should have known that a snake in the grass like Gato would betray me whenever he saw the perfect opportunity for it to happen. Kakashi nodded his understanding. The clack of Gato's cane snapped out on the bridge as he walked over to Haku's lifeless body. A bloody hole the size of a fist was in the left side of his chest. This is the kid that damn near broke my wrist last time we met. I owe you for that little stunt still. Too bad you won't be able to feel this. Spitting onto the blank face of Haku, Gato proceeded to viciously kick and stomp on the boy's corpse. He laughed with each strike as Kakashi clenched his fist and Zabuza held back tears of loss and anger as he did the same. Just as the man was about to stomp down on the boy's head, several shuriken lodged their way into his chest as a kunai struck his throat. Gato gurgled and spat out blood as he fell to the ground clutching his throat. Everyone watched as he struggled and kicked about before an explosive tag went off. Gato's head tore away from his body as his chest ripped apart in a shower of red. The sight made many of the bandits lose their lunch and made Tazuna and Sakura, who screamed, pass out from the horrific display. Those who could stomach the sight couldn't actually believe it. While the bandits continued to look at the spot their former employer's maimed body occupied, Kakashi and Zabuza turned to the boy whose hand was still out in a throwing motion. No one should disrespect the dead like that, he said to no one in particular. Zabuza walked over to Haku's body as Kakashi quickly moved to the boy's side. Your hair, he said, you should put it back up before Sakura wakes and notices. I don't think you want her to get curious and start asking you questions about it or anything. He placed a hand on the young boy's shoulder as he looked back at his other two students. One of them was beginning to stir and it wasn't Sakura. Not Sasuke either for that matter. The boy looked back at his teammates and sighed with a tiny bit of relief that he hadn't actually caused the Uchiha to die. Let them see. If they ask, I will confess to not being a boy, but a girl. No one can hide behind a mask forever. Also, I lost my ribbon. If you happen to see it, I'd like it back, you know. Kakashi nodded as the newly revealed girl walked over to Haku and Zabuza. She kneeled down next to them as the bandits began yelling about having lost their pay. The two kneeled silently beside the fallen boy. You know, Zabuza suddenly said, Haku didn't deserve this kind of life or death. He was too kind at the heart to be what I tried to mold him into. Looking at the girl next to him, he clenched his fist in sadness. His death is my blame to take. Standing, the girl grabbed the hilt of Zabuza's sword and pulled it away from the grieving and now surprised, missing nin. Haku-san became my friend in a matter of minutes some time ago, she whispered sadly. I felt I could truly trust him. That isn't something I can say for many others around me. Not even my own two teammates have my true friendship, let alone trust. Dragging the large weapon behind her, the girl walked towards the agitated group of bandits as her body began to be surrounded by the evil red chakra once again. He saw you as a father. No matter what you did. The day you found him, you became his one and only purpose. That boy would fight for you harder than he would even fight for his own life. That's why I'm going to kill all these bastards right now. The red chakra burst from her in a wave, knocking many of the bandits down. Wide-eyed and fascinated, Zabuza watched as the girl grabbed his sword by both hands and rushed her enemies with incredible speed for her level. She swung the weapon with the authority of a master sword wielder and decimated any who dared come near her. Those at a distance were no safer from the swings as the red chakra fused into the blade and extended its reach. Their screams filled the air, and the smell of blood was all that could be picked out from the entire area. Any who tried to escape were stopped by clones she had made and surrounded them with. Those who somehow got off the bridge were picked off by kunai with explosive tags on them in the water. It wasn't long before the girl was the only living soul at the end of the bridge. Kakashi and Zabuza were in awe at how easily she had decided and went about killing the hired hands of Gato. The blood of the bandits drenched her jumpsuit to the point you could hardly believe that it had ever been any color other than red. Her normally blue eyes were now a bright red with vertical slits for pupils. Her blonde hair seemed to have darkened and was in a messy array with blood splotches all over it. The canines in her teeth were more pronounced in her cheeks with her fingernails having sharpened and lengthened. All in all, with her dragging the large sword behind as she slowly returned to stand in front of Zabuza, the girl looked like a true demon. She held out the weapon to Zabuza who shook his head. I have no use for it anymore. Kakashi was able to still partly hit me with that jutsu of his. The bleeding inside me, I can feel it slowly draining my life away. It's time this sword is passed down like it is supposed to be. Just so I can know my successors, tell me your name first, or are you actually named Naruto after all? The girl shook her head as her features slowly reverted themselves. My real name, is Kamiko Uzumaki, Konoha's Kikbijinch Kriki, she whispered. Zabuza nodded. I suspected that you were one from the feel of your chakra. He pulled out a scroll from his pocket and wrote down a few directions before handing it to Kamiko. This will tell you where to find my hideout. It holds all sorts of information you might and will need. Some of it will be jutsus, others will be more of an informative sort for you, and others still will have what you need to know to handle that sword. Will you take this as part of my dying wish? Kamiko held onto the scroll for a moment without moving. She looked into the eyes of the demon of the mist and saw something that made her nod her head. Yes, I will. What is this other part to your dying wish that you apparently have? Smiling, Zabuza pulled down his mask to reveal that all of his teeth were sharpened as he laid down. I want you to have Haku buried somewhere nice. He deserves that. Also, take my body and turn it in for the bounty on my head. I'm pretty sure you would like the amount of ryo you could get off of it. Shaking her head, Kamiko knelt down and placed her hand on the side of Haku's face. I will bury Haku like you asked, but I'm going to bury you too. Right next to him. I think he would really like that. Zabuza looked at her and nodded knowing he wouldn't be able to change the girl's mind. He looked over at Haku as renewed tears began to fill his eyes. Kamiko left him and Haku as he spoke his final words to the boy. She stood next to her sensei and looked down at the sword in her hand that was now hers. Never thought I would end up holding the sword of one of the legendary Seven Swordsmen, let alone have it passed down to me. She gripped the handle while looking at it. It's kind of cool if we're to really think about it. Kakashi placed his hand on the girl's shoulder before looking over to his other two, now awake, students. Do you want help burying them, Kamiko-chan? I wouldn't mind if you liked. The girl nodded her head as she watched Zabuza breathe his last with a resigned smile on his face. Sakura, who was supporting the injured Sasuke, and Tazuna walked over to the pair and looked at the mess about the bridge. Sensei, what happened? I remember Gato's body exploding, but one person couldn't have done all this. In the distance, the villagers of the Wave Village could be heard revolting against what little of the bandits that were still around in the town. Kakashi placed a hand on her head and ruffled her hair. No need to worry about that, my dear student. Why don't you and Tazuna go back to the house with Sasuke now? The danger in the mission should be all but gone by now, and everyone deserves to rest now after all of this. You've all earned it. He looked at the fallen bodies of the two Kirinin and frowned. Even those two have earned their right to rest from all of this. Nodding, Sakura began to leave with Tazuna and Sasuke in tow before the injured boy asked a question. Hey Kakashi. Where is the dope and who is that person standing next to you with Zabuza's sword? Sakura suddenly noticed that she didn't see the blonde knuckled head and felt ashamed at just noticing the presence of the other person, though after looking at her she wished she hadn't. The blood all over her body and hair nearly made her sick. Just as Kakashi was about to answer, Kamiko cut in. Who I am is not any of your business right now. Your friend Naruto, he didn't survive the battle. Sakura gasped as tears instantly refilled her eyes and Sasuke clenched his fist as they suddenly realized how much the blonde had meant to the both of them. Go on like you sensei told you to. I have to bury Haku-san and Zabuza now if you don't mind. Getting a nod from Kakashi, the two genin left after a slight moment of hesitation, with their charge following close behind them. Kamiko watched her two teammates walk away with an emotionless stare before moving on to the two dead Kirinin. Kamiko and Kakashi picked up Haku and Zabuza respectively and made their way down the bridge and hopped down to make their way across the water. They walked the entire way across the water without saying even a single word to each other. Not even when Kamiko's feet began to tremble from how little strength she had left to support herself and Haku with. They eventually made it to where the unfinished bridge was going to end with little to no strength left in either of them. There was a slope far off to the side of the ridge that Kimiko noticed and led Kakashi over to it. This is a good spot. I think Haku would like the scene this place provides. Kakashi nodded as the two dug the graves for the two Kirin in and buried them. The girl pulled out the scroll she was given and shook it a little. I'm going to go get that stuff from that hideout place. Don't tell Sakura or Sasuke anything until I get back. I want to tell them as much as possible myself. Well, not really, but you know what I mean. Are you sure about that, Kimiko? Kakashi asked worriedly as he looked on to the sad girl. We could just say you are a random girl who found out she was related to Naruto. You don't have to reveal who you are to them. The girl shook her head slowly as she walked away. Reality. Can't hide behind a mask from it, Kakashi-sensei. Just can't hide behind one. At least, not forever, that is. The silver-haired man watched as his student walked off into the distance. He sighed before turning to look at the bridge in the distance. It would stand for many things to the villagers. For Kimiko, it would be a mark of reality. As she walked away from Kakashi, Kimiko looked up into the sky. Haku. I promise that, like you, when I find that person that is more precious to me than the most valuable gem, I will defend them with my life. The same way you defended Zabuza till the bitter end. Finding Zabuza's hideout was fairly easy for Kimiko as she followed the instructions on the paper he had given her. It led her to a swampy area that was quite pretty in its own right. The place was suspended off the ground slightly by multitudes of ninja wire all over the sides and top. It appeared to be a small abandoned house that no one would dare ever enter. Not if they valued their lives, that is. Hopping in through the doorless opening, Kimiko scanned the house that the two shinobi had called a home of sorts. There seemed to be only 2 rooms to the place. The one she was in seemed to take up most of the house. There was a single bed at the very middle of the back of the room. Other than that, there was only a long bookcase that stretched across 3 of the 4 walls. There was not much of the case used. Just from the initial look, Kimiko could tell that altogether, the scrolls and books would barely fill one of the walls. Kimiko made a handful of clones to find something to pack everything into and then had them pack stuff away. She turned to the one wall that was clear of anything than a simple wooden door. With caution, she slowly opened the door and looked in. The room that it led into wasn't very big, but it held a few things in it. In the left corner of the room was a small bed with a book about Kiri on it. At the foot of the bed was a box with a few bits of clothing in it. In the other corner of the room was a small wooden desk with a chair in front. There were 3 mini stands on top of it, with 2 of them having a Kiri Hunter ninja mask on them. One of them was empty. This must be Haku's room then. The young girl noticed that the stands were set in a triangle around a small black book. Walking over to the desk, she sat in the chair and read its cover. No mask. Opening it, she found small neat handwriting throughout the book. After a while of slowly flipping through the pages, Kimiko noticed that every second or third page would never reach the bottom of the page, but would end with a miniature signature. Yuki Haku. He even kept a diary. Nodding to herself, Kimiko pocketed the small diary before making 3 more clones. Having them pack all of the stuff that was on the desk and bookcase next to it before she walked back outside. She was sure that out of everything she had grabbed that something would most definitely be of use to her for more than just mastering the use of her new weapon. Once all of her clones had come out of the house, leaving only the furniture in it, the girl looked at the hideout. She contemplated destroying it before shaking her head. Never know when I might need this place for my own reasons. Let's get back to the house. Remembering what she would have to deal with once she returned, the girl sighed. I do not look forward to having to deal with them. 5 days later, Kimiko sat atop one of the pillars of the bridge as she looked down onto it while idly running her fingers along the handle of Kubikurum. To others, people looked like ants from her vantage point, but to her everything looked like it was fresh. Like the world was just in the beginning stages of being made. Though, that is exactly what might as well be happening to the people of the wave. A new bridge will bring a new and fresh world. Hopefully a much better one than the one they have lived so far. The young blonde watched as the workers went about building their new hope. Since the death of Gato and all the thugs that had come to the bridge with him, all of the workers have a newfound motivation for what they were doing. It was somewhat inspiring thing to see them all return with such vigor. The young girl had some of her clones working with them to speed up the process. Kimiko sighed as they all just radiated the happiness she and her team had given them. Happiness her teammates refused to have or let her have. The glare was ever present now from the young Uchiha boy below her. The two were sent to oversee and watch out for Tazuna, even though the bridge builder now surely was safe from just about any human threat, sort of a spontaneous attack or building accident. Sasuke Uchiha, though, did not care for what reason he was here. All he cared about was the girl above him. Kimiko sighed as she looked down at the boy with an annoyed glance as she recalled the events when she returned a few nights before. Flashback, she was sitting at the table quietly as everyone looked at her with curiosity, but Kakashi. Sasuke as well, but in his case he was just outright glaring at her with pure suspicion. Food was laid out onto table for everyone, but only Kakashi and Kimiko seemed to take any notice of that. The two just ignored the awkward air in the room that her presence had brought. Everyone else just watched as Kimiko ate her rice and pork in such a refined way that she could have been a princess if it wasn't for all the blood that was still on her clothing and hair. Something that Tazuna's daughter didn't really appreciate but refrained from saying anything about it. Sasuke, who was sitting directly across from her, snorted as he leaned back against the wall, grabbing everyone's attention except Kimiko's. "Well, I don't know about you guys, but I'm tired of this stupid act." He leaned forward again and smirked. "This girl isn't anyone special, so enough with the acting like she is. Now, who the hell are you?" After a moment's hesitation, Sakura nodded her head in agreement with him while Tazuna and his family just frowned. Kimiko continued eating her food like she had heard nothing. Kakashi sighed as he set down his chopsticks. "Sasuke, there is no need to act that way. Plus she's eating right now. She won't say anything until she has finished her food. It's just the way this one is." Sakura glanced between Kimiko and her sensei with slight confusion. "I don't get it. Do you two know each other, Kakashi-sensei?" Sasuke glared at Kakashi as the same thought had crossed his mind. "Yes, I know her," he gave them a weak eye smile. "In a way, we all know who she is, or who she used to be at least." Everyone blinked owlishly at the masked ninja. Sasuke of course just intensified his glare and clasped his hands in front of his face. Again the room was filled with an uncomfortable momentary silence. Sakura looked down at her food as tears filled her eyes. "Kakashi-sensei, I don't really care about who this girl is right now. I just what happened to Naruto." She squeezed her hands into fists as she squeezed her eyes shut. "I mean, we never even went out to find his body." "Yeah," Sasuke said in a slightly subdued tone. "He may have been a dope and everything, but we should have gone looking for him by now." Tazuna and his daughter Tsunami sighed in sadness as they thought of the boy that was supposedly dead. Inari, Tazuna's grandson and Tsunami's son, got up on shaky legs and left the room as silent tears streamed down his face. He didn't run like he usually did when he was throwing a tantrum. It was a walk of a crushing loss. "Listen, you guys." Naruto Kakashi started to answer when the sound of Kimiko sighing stopped him. His time to speak was pretty much over. "What does it matter to you guys what happened to him?" she asked in a bored tone as she placed down her chopsticks into an empty rice bowl. "He is dead. It doesn't really matter what happened to him. Not like you can do anything about it. There's no real reason for you to hunt for his body so soon either." Sakura slammed her hands down onto the table with anger in her eyes. "What do you mean it doesn't really matter? He was our teammate. We deserve to know what happened to him." She pointed at the girl with a shaking finger. "I don't know who you are, and like I said, I really don't even care. Say another word about Naruto and you'll regret it." "Oh, will I now?" Kimiko's eyes narrowed dangerously at the pink-haired girl. "Tell me, are you the one that's going to be the one to make me regret it?" Looking into the girl's gray eyes, Sakura's resolve quickly crumbled as she scooted away from her. Kimiko snorted. "I thought as much. What about you, duck ass? Got anything you'd like to say?" Sasuke clearly heard the challenge in Kimiko's voice and didn't like it one bit. His glare hardened even more and he stood up. "Unlike Sakura, I'll back up what I say. So say another thing about the dope and it'll be the last thing you do. That I promise you." In her mind, Sakura was aggressively cheering for Sasuke to just go ahead and smack the other girl around like silly. DCH. As if you could make good on that. "From the way you two are talking, it sounds like I'm bad-mouthing the guy when I'm not." Kimiko clasped her hands in her lap and tilted her head. "All I'm saying is he's dead, but I guess you all deserve the truth in one way or another." "Well, not really, but I'll still tell you anyways I guess." Tsunami looked at Kimiko with startled eyes. "What do you mean by the truth? Is Naruto not really dead?" Hope sprung into the eyes of Sakura and Tazuna. Kakashi rubbed the back of his head as he joined back into the conversation. "Well, technically he isn't dead, but in a sense Naruto is dead, you see." "I don't get it," Tazuna said while crossing his arms as he cut Kakashi off before he could continue. "How can he not be dead but be dead?" "Because Naruto Uzumaki never actually existed," Kimiko said with a slight chuckle. Everyone except Kakashi looked at the blonde like she had grown a second head. "The boy that all of you have gotten to know was never really born. He was nothing more than a front for everyone to look at." Sasuke shook with anger as Sakura shook her head. "You're lying. We've known that blonde baka since he was 5. There is no way he wasn't real. I've felt him." "Wrong," Kimiko yawned in boredom, "you've hit him before. There is a vast difference just so you know. You should be able to figure it out, smart girl." Sakura's teeth clenched at the insult. Sasuke snorted and rolled his eyes. "Yeah, right. You just happen to be the one to know all of this. No one else at this table knew but you. Pretty convenient story if you ask me. You can't even say it was Yinjutsu since I got my Sharingan eye during our battle on the bridge. I would have seen through it then instantly." Himiko pointed lazily at Kakashi, who felt that any attempt to talk would lead to him being interrupted. Kakashi-sensei knows the truth. Kakashi-sensei knows how you're all-powerful. I failed to tell you the truth. She looked at everyone and shrugged, deciding to just say it instead of messing with them. Though part of her did want to watch them fall over themselves trying to figure out the obvious. Kakashi-sensei is one of the few people who knew who Naruto really was honestly. And who was that? Tsunami asked. The blonde-haired girl smirked slightly and pointed at herself. Naruto Uzumaki was me. Flashback end. The girl looked back at the workers and lazily swung her legs back and forth. Of course after that Tsunami and Tazuna took it all in strides while those two idiots just exploded. It had taken a better part of an hour to get the two genin to calm down enough to listen to anyone at the table. After calming the two, Kakashi took them away to feed them a sugar-coated reason for why Naruto was her and she was Naruto. Since then Sasuke has done nothing but glare at her and Sakura kept a small amount of distance between the two of them. This is all way too bothersome to think about. I wonder what Hokage is up to at the moment. Meh, probably paperwork. Poor guy. Jumping down from her perch onto the top of a small shack by the bridge, then to the ground, Kimiko passed by Sasuke, who glared at the large weapon strapped to her back, and walked over to Tazuna, who was wiping sweat away from his forehead. How much longer until this bridge is done, Tazuna-san? Tazuna looked down at the girl and smiled. After getting used to her pretty quickly, he had his daughter get her some clothes that were meant for a girl her age to wear. Not the blood-stained jumpsuit she had yet to change out of at the time of her reveal. Ah, Kimiko-kun, we should be able to finish the bridge in 2 more days tops at this rate. One if we take no breaks, but no one here is that enthusiastic. How are you liking the clothes that Tsunami gave you? Kimiko looked down at her clothes and shrugged. She wore a short-sleeved black shirt with the end of the sleeves and the collar colored gray, and a pair of thin gray pants with the waistband colored black. I don't have any complaints if that's what you're asking. They fit quite comfortably on me. I'll be sure to return them before we have to leave. Also I'm a girl, don't you mean Chan? The bridge builder waved her off as he smiled. You were a boy when I met you, so it's just what slips the tongue when I talk to you. I'll straighten out eventually. As for the clothes, there is no need for that. Tsunami outgrew those clothes when she was 11 years old and Inari doesn't seem to want to wear them. He laughed as he looked at Kimiko's slight pout. I get it already, I'm a little short. No need for you to point it out. The blonde looked up at the sun in the sky. Anyways, don't you think you guys should call it quits for the day? It is going to start getting dark soon. Tazuna thought for a moment before nodding to himself and walking over to the workers and telling them to pack up. Kimiko turned and looked over at the glaring Uchiha. Yo team. We're done here for the day. You can go back now, I'll wait for Tazuna-san. Sasuke grunted and walked off without a word. Stupid team. That one seems to be even more of a handful than before, Tazuna observed as he walked back over to Kimiko. And that's actually saying something. TCH, you're telling me. I never really liked that guy one bit. She dispelled all of her clones and followed the man off of the bridge. Sakura is no better than him right now either. Anytime I try even approach the girl, she'll leave and ignore me. At least with Sasuke I know why he is acting this way. Tazuna gave her a questioning look and she shrugged. Hurt pride. Many Uchiha had an almost god complex. The fact that I have been able to deceive him for so long doesn't sit well with him one bit. Especially after he gained his all-powerful Sharingan too. Plus it doesn't hurt that he's a major asshole. Tazuna laughed heartily as he slapped Kimiko on the back. That he is Kimiko-chan. That he is. Maybe he'll find a nice young girl to loosen him up someday. Kimiko sighed. If so, Ino and Sakura need to hurry their lazy asses up. I'm tired of that team giving me a damn headache. I'm sure as hell not gonna be that girl no matter what. The two talked about the bridge on their return until they reached the house and were greeted by Tsunami setting up the table. Nah, do you need any help with that, Tsunami-san? Tsunami looked up and smiled with relief. Oh yes, Maiko-chan. Could you cook the rice while I make the fish? I had Sakura doing it, but Tsunami looked around nervously and sighed. But that girl has practically no cooking skills whatsoever. How do you set water on fire without any oil in it? Kimiko snickered as she walked into the kitchen and grabbed a pot for the rice. I have no idea, Tsunami-chan, but no worries, I'll take care of it for you. She put water into the rice-filled pot and then added a bit of butter while Tsunami started cutting the fish. As she stirred the pot gently with a wooden spoon, she pulled out 3 carrots she found and ran them under the water. This is really nice, she thought as she cut up the carrots. She placed the small pieces into the rice with a small hidden smile. It may be just rice, but I always wanted to cook alongside someone. Nichan and Tucci would never let me. After watching the rice boil for a while longer, she turned to Tsunami, who astonishingly had just finished cooking the fish. But how? I'm just now finishing the rice. How could you have already finished the fish in the time it took me to cook rice? Tsunami giggled. Oh, that's a secret, Maiko-chan. I can't have people running around finishing the fish just as fast as me with them still tasting this good now, can I? The bridge builder's daughter winked. How about you go sit at the table? I'll bring the food out in a moment myself. Thank you for the help. Himiko laughed silently as she walked out of the kitchen, leaving a clone behind to help carry in the food. That way she was still able to help while still doing what she was told to do. She wasn't the first one to the table. Kakashi and Sasuke were whispering an argument while Tazuna was already downing a bottle of cheap alcohol he had bought. Sakura and Inari weren't to be seen at the table just yet. For a moment the girl considered interrupting the argument between teacher and student but didn't feel like dealing with Sasuke's brooding or glares any more than was necessary. Sitting at the table, she ran her hand over the handle of the large weapon on her back. Something she has found herself doing quite a lot out of boredom. The weapon hadn't belonged to her very long, but she found herself attached to it like it was always hers. Her training with it has only been the bare basics of all sword training. Swinging the sword down and overhead to stop them at certain points, turning the blade sideways and slicing it horizontally across her chest starting from her back, and again swing her sword overhead and diagonally across her body at certain points. She rarely put it all together, even though it was highly recommended to do so. Himiko decided to wait until she had a real teacher to show her how to properly use her weapon. Sighing, Kakashi sat next to her and gave her an eye smile. An unhappy Sasuke sat across from them and proceeded to glare at the empty bowl before him. So how has your training been going, Kimiko-chan? Kakashi asked kindly. The girl shrugged in response. I don't know really. It's not like I have someone to show me what to do, sensei. Nor did I see Zabuza actually fight with it either. I have to find someone for that after we get back to the village. Nodding, Kakashi sent an eye smile to Sakura who walked into the room. Sakura returned the smile and quickly sat by Sasuke who inched away from the girl. Maybe I can help you with that, Kakashi said after pulling out his little orange book. I know a few good kenjutsu artists in the village. I'm sure one of them would be able to find time to train you. Thanks, Kakashi-sensei. Kimiko smiled as Inari made his way into the room and sat next to her. How are you, Inari? The young boy looked up at Kimiko with a toothy grin. Good, Kimiko-nichan. The other kids are starting to hang around me again. The girl patted his head before snatching the blue hat off of it. That's all fine and good, but don't forget. No hats at the table. Kakashi snickered at Kimiko's mother-like words before she sent him a hard glare. After Kakashi stopped laughing, the blonde girl looked at Sakura. For just a moment their eyes met before Sakura quickly looked away. Growing irritated with the girl, Kimiko was about to call out her name when Tsunami and her clone swept in with the food. I hope nobody minds, but I added some chopped celery to the fish. Deflating slightly, Kimiko smiled at Tsunami as the food was placed in front of her. The women skipped Izuna before sitting down with her own food. The old man looked at his daughter indignantly as she began eating. Tsunami, I think you forgot about me, he chuckled. Tsunami didn't even look at the man. No, I didn't. You know how I feel about you drinking before I have even brought out the food. The man garbled nonsense before standing up to get his own food. Kimiko laughed as he wobbled off. Maybe you should just hide the alcohol from him, Tsunami-san. That way he can't be tempted by it. Everyone laughed or chuckled at the sudden crashing and cursing they heard from the kitchen. After he came back everyone calmed down a small amount, but Sakura seemed put off for some reason. I thought you didn't talk at the table until you finished eating. Sakura said to Kimiko lowly as she slowly ate her own food. The fresh joy in the room was quickly snuffed by the girl's tone of voice. Looking at her teammate, Kimiko wondered about the girl. There were so many ways to approach one like Sakura, so she quickly chose the way she preferred and pointed down at her empty rice bowl and fish plate. As you can see, Haruno-san, I have finished eating already. Which really isn't any of your concern. I would appreciate it if you didn't try calling me a liar. Sakura continued to stare at her food. But then I would be calling you exactly what you are. A chill ran through the room as Kimiko's glare hardened. She pushed her nails into her open palm under the table to keep from launching herself at the poor child across from her. Oh really now? So I'm a liar, huh? The blonde smiled sweetly at the pink-haired girl. What gives you the right to call me by anything but my name? The chill in the room seemed to heighten, but only Sakura seemed to suffer its effects. The girl's teeth were chattering and her body was shaking. Her skin never seemed to visibly be turning a light blue to those around her. It was as if she had stepped into her own personal frozen hell and couldn't find a way out. Her breath hitched every time she tried to breathe and the air felt far too thick in her throat to go down. Just as Sakura was about to snap, it all disappeared making her fall back against the wall behind her. Looking up, Sakura saw Kimiko's chilling grin and regretted her words. That was uncalled for, Kakashi said seriously to Kimiko with a frown and a hand on her shoulder. Directing Kai like that is for your enemies, not your allies. The girl frowned as she cut a look at her sensei before huffing in annoyance. The same goes for you, Sakura, Kakashi said in a softer tone. Kimiko-chan has her reasons for not revealing herself before now. Try to understand that her life could have been much worse if everyone had known she was not a boy. Sakura nodded as she went back to eating, unable to stop her constant shivering. She didn't understand why life would have been hard for Kimiko if she didn't hide as a boy. On the other hand, she no longer felt it mattered. Swallowing, Sakura tried to amend her words. Well, I mean, how about you tell us about yourself then? You know, like when we were first put together as a team. Sasuke stopped eating and looked at Kimiko with eyes that said he thought the same, but refused to verbally chip in. That sounds reasonable, don't you think, Miko-chan? Tsunami smiled at Kimiko, trying to help destroy the tension between the three teammates. How troublesome, Kimiko sighed with a chuckle as she thought of the only other person in their age group that knew the truth about her. Well, my name is Uzumaki Rin Kimiko. I like ramen, training, and learning new jutsus. My dislikes are people who judge others without knowing all the facts, arrogant guys, the color pink, and molesters and rapists. Hobbies are training, painting, and burning things people don't care about. My dream is to be one of history's strongest Kenwaichis and to become the Hokage of the village someday. Everyone found one or two things new that they liked or disliked about the girl, and they all, except Inari, caught her paws towards the end of her dislikes. The question hung in the air, but no one dared ask it out of respect. Her hobbies were quite interesting though. So you paint, Miko-chan? Are you any good? For a moment, Kimiko looked at Tsunami blankly before pulling open her shirt and reaching down into it. Sakura and Tsunami yelled as Kakashi chuckled. Tazuna covered Inari's eyes, and he and Sasuke had the decency to look away with blushes. What do you think you are doing? There are guys around her. Kimiko shrugged as if that fact didn't bother them. It doesn't matter. I have wraps on so they wouldn't see anything they shouldn't. I mean, it's not even like I am taking my shirt off here. For a moment she rummaged around in her shirt before pulling out a palm-sized palette. She placed it in the middle of the table carefully for everyone to see. Breathes hitched for all as they looked at the picture. It was Konoha at sunset from what appeared to be the top of the Hokage monument. All the buildings were exactly the way they were now. The only difference was the presence of a small building that used to belong to Orochimaru not too far before he betrayed the village. Kakashi gently lifted the palette in wonder. Amazing, Kimiko-chan, this painting has to be at least 7 years old. That small building here was torn down just 6 years ago. Tsunami gingerly took it from him and gently rubbed the side of the palette. Professional artist would envy this painting, Miko-chan. All the colors blend perfectly together but somehow still stand out individually. And is there a man on this building here? Looking at it, Sakura gasped. That's the third Hokage. You got the third to be in a picture. Kimiko twisted a strand of hair near her shoulder uncertainly. Well, no, he was just standing there. What else was I supposed to do? Leave that spot blank or something? There's even a few leaves in the wind, Sasuke mumbled to no one in particular. Tsunami handed the painting back to Kakashi, who gave it back to Kimiko, who placed it back into her shirt. That was amazing, Miko-chan. If Kakashi is serious about that picture, you had to have been only 6 or 7 when you made this. And you still paint. Kimiko nodded. Wow. I would love to see more if I ever get the chance. After the painting had been seen, things just seemed to relax for everyone at the table. Sakura still didn't look in Kimiko's direction much, but she at least tried to be friendly. Sasuke was still a selfish prick, which was to be expected. At the very least he wasn't demanding anything of the girl. Kimiko had assumed he would upon finding out she had inherited everything from Zabuza, but he seemed content to stay quiet about it. For now, that is. By the time they were standing on the completed bridge, the three genin found things were the way they used to be for them, if not slightly better. They waved as they followed Kakashi away to the cheering crowd of wave villagers. You think they'll remember any of us? Sakura said as they turned away from the people. Who knows, Kakashi said into his book, but what really matters is that they know they are truly free. Sasuke and Kimiko nodded in agreement. Azuna smiled as he watched them walk away before turning to his people. Well, now we need to name this bridge. Any suggestions? Name it after you, Tazuna. No way. It has to be named the Supreme Bridge. What about the Wave Bridge? How about Salvation's Bridge? Tsunami smiled as a name came to her. How about the boy that never was who brought peace into all of our lives? The Great Naruto. The Great Naruto Bridge. People slowly nodded their heads in the agreement as the names started to catch on. Soon it was being chanted in an off-key fashion. Azuna smiled and looked at it. Yeah. The Great Maelstrom Bridge. The cheers for the name were deafening. Hey Kakashi-sensei, did you ever look for my ribbon, huh? The Tetsu Hagane and Izumo Kamizuki were completely bored out of their minds. Due to a small screw-up that occurred at the end of their latest mission, they had been put on gate duty for the past 2.5 months. Izumo looked at his friend and sighed. While he was tired of guarding the gate since nothing ever happened at it, Kitetsu was just fine to be lounging around and really doing nothing at the gate with no real expectations of him. At times the man even seemed to be happy about it. Izumo could never understand his mentality and never would. Just as he was about to strike up a conversation with his partner, he saw 4 figures in the distance walking towards the gate. He squinted and just make out the form of Kakashi reading his book as he led his team back to the village. "Hey Kitetsu, look who has finally come back from their first real mission as a team outside the village." Kitetsu grumbled as he sat up from his resting position. When he saw Kakashi and the others, a grin broke out onto his face. "Hey you guys. How was the mission?" He yelled out to the oncoming ninja before his smile slowly fell as they came closer. It was always great to see the same amount of people return from a mission as left for it. That was unless the people coming back weren't completely the same as those who left. "Hey, Kakashi, where's Naruto and who's the cute little girl you guys brought back with you?" He gave Kimiko a quick once-over and his eyes widened. "And why does that girl have one of the legendary 7 swords?" Kakashi gave the men his trademark eye smile before walking past them. "Don't worry about it you guys. Nothing bad happened and you might find out what did sooner or later." Sasuke and Sakura walked past them as well with the girl following behind them. I wonder what that was about," Kitetsu mused as he leaned back into a comfortable position. He decided it best to forget about the large weapon on the girl's back. Izumo nodded his head in agreement before smiling. "Yeah, didn't know you were a lolicon though Kitetsu." His friend sputters as he fell backwards. "Those guys need to get a life," Kimiko said as she looked back on them as Izumo was laughing. "You'd think that they like just hanging around the gate." Kakashi nodded his head. "Those two just can't seem to get their act together. Though don't go and underestimate them Kimiko-chan. They are strong when it really comes down to it." "I'm not talking to you," Kimiko said emotionlessly before walking past everyone to the Hokage Tower. "Wow. Was the ribbon that important to her or something?" Sakura asked as they let her get a small ways ahead of them. "I mean, Kimiko isn't the warmest person, but that shoulder was made of nothing but pure ice." "Unfortunately yes," Kakashi sighed, "and Kimiko can hold a pretty long grudge Sakura-chan." The girl suddenly shivered for some unknown reason. Sasuke snorted. "What's so important about a freaking ribbon? Just get another one just like it." "Done." "That's not possible Sasuke-kun. You see, that ribbon isn't just any ribbon. It's not really even a ribbon at all, but a piece of clothing that Hokage-sama was able to salvage." "Salvage from where?" Sakura asked as Sasuke thought the question. Kakashi looked up with a sad expression on his face before looking at Kimiko's bouncing hair. "He salvaged it from a piece of Kimiko's mother's clothing. What was left of it that is." Sakura's eyes widened as Sasuke glared at Kakashi suddenly understanding the true importance of that ribbon. "I see," was all he said. Kakashi sighed as Sasuke and Sakura walked ahead of him as well. The man was starting to wonder if his Icha was becoming too much of a distraction for him to work properly. No need to say the thought didn't last very long as he found it impossible. The book could never be considered a distraction. Eventually the 4 found themselves standing before a somewhat irritated Hokage in his office. After they gave their report on their mission, Hizuran's old face seemed to bore holes into Kakashi's sweating face. "So you are telling that you encountered the demon brothers and still continued?" Everyone nodded. "You were confronted by the A-rank missing ninja, Zabuza Mamachi, and still continued?" Again everyone nodded. "That after a fight with Zabuza's apprentice, Haku, Kimiko-chan decided to forego her disguise from then on?" Kakashi and Kimiko nodded. "And you're telling me that you didn't find Kimiko's ribbon?" He said the last part to Kakashi making the man feel like a disappointment. "I was busy taking care of the needs of the mission," Kakashi tried to defend. "From what you said that wasn't needed. The mission was practically over after the death of Geto." "No, it was over as soon as the demon brothers arrived." Hizuran shook his head. "But no matter, what's lost is lost, and what's done is done. There is nothing to be done about it. I'll send pay for your first A-rank mission straight to you accounts." After a short round of haste, the Hokage dismissed everyone in the room except Kimiko. "You need something Hokage Jiji," she said with a smile that could warm an iceberg's heart. "Why yes Kimiko-chan. I actually need you to come with me to see Dr. Yuji and Dr. Yukai. You missed your last appointment with them and your next one is soon approaching. It's probably best to just take care of it now." The blonde nodded her head while twirling a strand of her hair as the Hokage stood to lead her to her doctors. Originally Dr. Yuji and Dr. Yukai were both nurses in Konoha's main hospital. After an unfortunate attempt on Kimiko's life via the hospital's medical staff, the two were chosen to become the girl's personal doctors as they showed they had no hate for the young girl. There was another doctor, but he was no longer able to be trusted. Hizuran led Kimiko through a secret passage the Hokages used when they needed quick and easy access to one of the hospitals in the village. After a few minutes of silent walking, the two found themselves in a hidden room just under the hospital structure. "I'll be right back Kimiko-chan," Hizuran smiled. "I'll bring Yuji and Yukai back to check on you in just a moment." Kimiko smiled her understanding as the man left. The room he left her in was about the size of the Hokage's office, with steel lining its walls and keeping the room chilled. There was a small two-seat couch in the corner of the room with a small circular glass table and a lamp next to it. There were a number of paintings hung around the room of different animals, people, and shots of Konoha. Each one of them belonging to the young Kunoichi. A person could trace her progress as a painter in this one room, though she carried her best work with her at all times. Himiko was looking at one of her early paintings of herself in the mirror, thinking she would remake it when the Hokage returned back with the doctors. "Ah, Miko-chan, you're home," two women said before quickly engulfing the girl into a tight hug. She giggled as she hugged them back. "It's nice to see you guys too. I was only gone for like a month, you know." Yukai shook her head as she tapped her foot with crossed arms. The woman was average height and in her late 20s. She had short light auburn hair with kind brown eyes that seemed to complement her pale skin. In the standard doctor's outfit, one could say the women did well, but not too well in the chest department and was quite slender. "And yet we haven't seen you in almost 2. Yuji nodded her head in agreement. She was slightly shorter than Yukai and in her earlier 30s. Her hair waved down to her shoulders in a dark black cascade and her eyes were the same as Yukai's. The woman's body was lightly plump with all the curves in all the right places. "Yeah, you may only have to see us once a month, but that doesn't mean you can't visit us, young lady." Himiko scratched the back of her head. "Sorry about that, you guys. I had just been caught up in my team, you know. I so would have come seen you guys if it wasn't for that." "Fine, we believe you. Now, you, out of your clothes," they said together while pointing at her before turning to the Hokage, "and you, out of the room." Hizaran chuckled. Right. After you are all rested up, Kamiko-chan, go see Anko. I'm sure she would love to take you out shopping for women's clothes now that you won't be using male clothing anymore." "I won't?" she asked. The three adults in the room just sighed before the Hokage left. "Why do I need a change of clothes? These clothes still fit me perfectly." Shrugging, Kamiko decided to ask Anko when she went to see her later. Soon the girl was sitting on the edge of a bed in the middle of the room in just her chest wrappings. "Those two, Miko-chan," Yuji said as she looked at Kamiko. The young girl's face suddenly heated up. Why would I need to take these off, Yuji-chan? I never had to take them off before." Yukai lifted her hand in the air as her other one shifted around in a bag. "Easy, Miko-chan. You are getting older and will, if you already haven't, start to develop." The wraps were decoration up until now. Kamiko hesitated before turning her back on the older women. She quickly undid the wraps before covering her chest in an uncharacteristic show of embarrassment. "Miko-chan, turn around so we can start." The girl turned around while still covering her chest. The sight was cute to the doctors as Kamiko's face was as red as could be and was looking away from them with a clearly developing chest. "See, can't I just keep my arms like this?" The two women just rolled their eyes before beginning their inspection of the girl's body. The checkup didn't last very long. They found nothing wrong with the girl other than the fact that even for a girl, she was short for her age. The two chalked it up to genetics or something. Eventually getting her to pull her arms away from her chest, they found no damage to her ribs or lungs from the prolonged use of her bindings. Just as they were finishing, the girl flew off the bed holding her chest once again. "What the fuck are you trying to do to me? I thought you only did that to Yuji-chan, Yukai-chan." Yuji laughed as Yukai sighed in defeat with a hand outstretched in front of her. "I was only trying to get a small feel to see if she was firm. Didn't think she'd react like that so fast." Grabbing her clothes, Kamiko quickly got dressed while glaring at Yuji for laughing. "So not necessary. I'll see you guys later. I need to go see Anko-chan now." The women waved as Kamiko ran out the room and through the hospital. "So, firm she'll grow big. Ah, does this make us pedophiles? You didn't touch her." The next day found Kamiko standing and training ground 11 with Sasuke, Sakura, Team 8, and Team 10. The 9 genin stood or sat, or even laid in the case of one, in a semicircle as they waited for all of their genin senseis. Each one of them had woken up with a note for them to go arrive at training ground 11 at noon. "What do you think they have us all gathered here for?" Choji asked as he munched on a bag of chips. His best friend Shikamaru sighed as he stared up at the sky. "Who knows, Choji, and to be honest I don't think that is the question we should be asking." Everyone around him nodded before looking at Kamiko who stared blankly back at them. "What?" she said dully. She was wearing another pair of clothes from Tsunami since she was unable to find Anko the other day. "Is there something on my face?" Ino stepped forward with a raised eyebrow and pointed at her. "Who the hell are you? And where is Naruto-kun?" Hinata chimed in as she looked around for her blonde crush. Tilting her head, Kamiko pointed at herself. "Naruto is right here, Hinata-san." Sasuke snorted as Sakura frowned at Kamiko for telling them not to say anything. "Oh, this is your sexy jutsu, but shorter and with clothes on," Kiba said drawing Ino's attention. "Wow, it has some sort of intelligence after all. What you say, bitch?" "Bitch." The two got in each other's faces just before Shino's bugs did the same and forced the two apart. "Don't do that, dude. It's really creepy." Shino just shrugged at his teammate before turning to Kamiko. "You're not Naruto," Shikamaru said. "What's your name?" Kamiko sighed and continued pointing at herself. "My name is Uzumaki Kamiko, but you guys know me as Uzumaki Naruto. Why is that so hard to believe? Because me and Naruto have had pissing contests together." Kiba said, drawing disturbed looks from everyone. "What? We were kids back then." "Yeah, right. I knew you and Naruto had something going on," Ino snickered. "Bitch. I'll kill you. Oh, for the love of Kami, I can't do this anymore." Everyone turned to Shikamaru, who was rubbing his temples. "She's telling the truth. The girl has been running around disguised as the blonde idiot you got to know, alright. Now shut up, I'm trying to sleep." Kamiko pouted as she looked at the lazy genius. "Aw man, Shika. I was having fun messing with him." "Troublesome blonde," he replied. "I was getting a headache and this just started. It was going to get worse. Yet you're the one who started it." Wait. So this girl really is Naruto," Ino said, shocked to receive a nod from Sasuke, Shikamaru, and Sakura. "And the three of you knew the entire time and didn't tell us." Sakura waved her hands in front of her. "No way, Ino Bunta. Me and Sasuke found out on our last mission when she decided she wasn't going to hide herself anymore. We were just as shocked, if not more so than you guys." She shifted her gaze on Ino into a glare on Shikamaru. "Him though, I have no idea how he knew about her." Shikamaru looked up at three accusing glares, three pairs of curious eyes, and a pair of shades. "How troublesome. I met her when she was still walking around as a girl. I only remember because of her nickname for me back then." "Which was?" Everyone looked at Kamiko, who smiled brightly. "Lazy Pineapple Man, of course." Sakura and Ino promptly fell out laughing at the ridiculously funny name as Sasuke snickered and Choji patted Shikamaru's shoulder. Shikamaru seemed to be mumbling something about annoying women, but only Choji could hear him. Hinata was standing staring at the others with blank eyes. "I still like her, does that make me gay? Father really won't accept this." But Kiba was banging his head on the trunk of a tree. "She's seen me naked. She's seen me naked. She's seen me naked. She's seen." Shino was watching Kamiko laugh with the other girls with a hidden smirk. "Ha, I knew I wasn't gay." As the laughing girls began to calm down, their Jinin senseis finally appeared. "Sorry we're late, you guys. We had Kiba-sen. What are you doing?" Kurenai looked at the boy like he was insane. He slowly turned his head as a small trail of blood leaked down the middle of his forehead. "She's seen me naked." A blank stare was all any of the Jinin had to offer the boy. Asuma shook his head. As Kurenai-sen was saying "we had to, who is that?" He pointed his finger at Kamiko as the genin sighed. Sighing, Shikamaru decided to roll over to his sensei and explain the situation, leaving both Kurenai and Asuma to stare at Kamiko confused. "Look," Kakashi said as he read his porn, "we all had to attend a meeting before coming to you all." He pulled out 3 papers that he held out lazily to his students. "We nominated all 9 of you for this year's Shinin selection exams in Konoha next month. You need to sign this and report to the academy in 2 weeks if you want to attend." Flicking the papers away, the masked Shinin left. Kurenai stared heatedly at the spot Kakashi had been standing in, while Asuma just shrugged. "Well, I have nothing to add to that. Come to me if you have any questions." He placed all of his team's papers in Choji's hands before walking off. Kurenai's fist clenched as she shook her head at the 2 Jonin's lack of fully explaining the situation to their students. Signaling her students to follow her, Kurenai left while mumbling about lazy asses. After getting a paper from Choji, who went to sit by Shikamaru, Ino walked over to Sakura and Kamiko. "So, you've seen Kiba naked, huh?" she asked while smirking. As Sakura's face became heated from the thoughts of a naked Kiba, Kamiko just shrugged. "Yeah. I mean, I've technically have seen all the guys except Shino and Sasuke naked. And let me tell you, you're not missing much if you never see Kiba naked." Ino fell down laughing as Sakura slumped to the ground mentally scarred. Ino slowly recovered from her laughter and stared up at Kamiko with a grin. "How did you hide all of that hair of yours, Kamiko? There's no way we could have missed it. I mean, look at it. If I take out my ponytail I still don't have that much hair." Kamiko puckered her lips slightly. "I had a ribbon that was given to me as a present to help tie my hair into itself without tangling it." "That's pretty cool. What did you do with the ribbon?" Gloomy air suddenly appeared around Kamiko, who was now leaning against a tree. A small wavering smile played across her face as she chuckled on and off. "That ribbon is Ground Zero Bunta," Sakura whispered furiously into her ear. "She lost it on our last mission during the battle and asked Kakashi-sensei to help her find it. The guy flat out refused the girl and almost made her cry from what she told me." Ino's eyes widened. "Forehead, are you kidding me? You better not be kidding me." Sakura shook her head. "Damn, I can't wait for Kurenai-sensei to hear about this. What else happened? Details. Details." Kamiko watched from a distance as Sakura and Ino huddled together. She tried to hear what they were saying, but all she heard was gossip, 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 gossip. "I wonder what they are talking about over there." She watched them until she finally got tired of trying to listen to them. She thought about walking over to the boys, but didn't find a reason to. Seeing as there was nothing for her to do, and she was just waiting for the others to leave so she could train, Kimiko resolved to take a nap on one of the trees, but it was as soon as she sat down that Ino and Sakura appeared in front of her with expectant gazes. Hi. Sakura squinted at the girl. I've been somewhat distracted for a while, but now is a better time to ask than never. Ino nodded her head. Yeah, so tell us Kimiko, who do you like? Kimiko stared blankly at the two girls before her. Just as she was going to say it was none of their business, a thought struck her. Blushing, Kimiko looked over at Sasuke several times. Well, you see. Ino and Sakura's eyes widened in horror. Oh no you don't. They yelled in unison. Sasuke-kun is my man. Shut up Ino Bunta. Sasuke is mine. Didn't you get that when I got paired with him and not you? Sakura turned her glare on the platinum blonde next to her. Ino crossed her arms. That doesn't mean anything in the face of love forehead. My love for Sasuke-kun far outweighs yours. That's what you think. Why just the other day Sasuke-kun was telling me how good of a kunoichi I was. Oh bullshit. You aren't even half the kunoichi I am. As if you're a better kunoichi than me. Erg. Forehead. Bunta. Forehead. Bunta. Forehead. Bunta. Bushi. Sakura's eyes widened at the insult before going red at the face. You bitch. How dare you. Launching herself, Sakura tackled Ino to the ground. The two rolled, punched, and pulled at each other's hair until they heard a soft laughter. Looking up, they noticed that Kimiko was bent over at the waist and was trying to contain her giggles. What's so funny? Ino huffed while sporting a bruise on her cheek. Sakura glared at her with a blackened eye. Yeah, what do you have to laugh about? Kimiko bit the inside of her cheek as her chuckles shook her body. Oh nothing, just that you two fell for that so damn easily. The two girls stared at Kimiko blankly. What? PFFT. I don't even like the team. There's no way he could be a love interest for me. That boy is a pansy anyways. Kimiko laughed as Sasuke glared at her from a distance. How can you say that about someone as great as Sasuke-kun? Sakura exclaimed. Easy, he's just not my type. That blonde shrugged her shoulders. Ino nodded her head. That's understandable. Then what is your type if not Sasuke's type? The gossiper in the young heiress far outweighed need for her to defend Sasuke. A smile played across Kimiko's face as another joke formed in her mind. Come here and I'll whisper it in your ear Ino. Nodding, the other blonde scooted closer. Ready for a juicy tidbit of information. Well, Sasuke isn't my type because Ino was cut off mid-sentence as Kimiko's lips smashed onto hers. The girl's eyes widened as Kimiko's hands rose onto her shoulders. Sakura's jaw dropped as she watched both girls fall to the ground with both their lips still locked. Kimiko rolled on top of Ino and pinned the girl's hands beside her head. In the beginning Ino struggled to push her fellow blonde off of her, but she soon started to calm down. Her eyes slowly closed before she began kissing Kimiko back and wrapped her fingers into the other girls. Ino began to moan as Kimiko pushed her tongue into her mouth and wrapped around hers. Her moans reached the ears of the three remaining boys who turned to be shocked by the sight. Choji dropped his bag of chips on Shikamaru's head, who decided it was definitely time to leave. Sasuke blinked rapidly before covering his eyes while activating his Sharingan. Kimiko's hands began to roam across Ino's body and squeezed onto her breast. The girl gasped as her back arched and her body began to shake. Her shakes lasted for a minute before she finally relaxed completely. That, Kimiko said in a sweet voice as she pulled away from Ino's lips, is why Sasuke isn't my type. I could never get this kind of reaction out of that guy. Bouncing up off of the half-conscious girl, Kimiko skipped off to find Shikamaru. Sasuke watched Kimiko leave while Sakura and Choji stared at Ino. Her hand slowly traced her lips as a lazy smile played across her lips. Wow, that was the hottest kiss I've ever had. She stood and stumbled her way back home while still tracing her lips. The mental scars, they just keep coming. Was it really that good of a kiss? Damn, she had to be gay, didn't she? That might be a good thing. That was hot, gotta have a camera next time. Now where did my chips go? I was supposed to be training, wasn't I? Oh well. Lazy pineapple man. Damn troublesome woman. It was a warm sunny day in Konoha with only a few scattered clouds hanging in the sky. The civilians of the village could tell it would be a good day to go out and just enjoy themselves. Though who cared about the civilians and what they are doing? Not I, and hopefully not you. Walking towards the outskirts of a large barbed wired fence, Kimiko sat on a fallen log silently. She pulled out an orange from a bag she had brought with her and slowly began to peel away its soft shell. As she pulled away at the orange, the girl softly hummed to herself. Ah. Could there be a better start to my day than this? None of the villagers caused me any trouble this morning. No annoying teammates have showed up to bother me. And I can eat my orange here in nice silent peace while I wait. Nodding to herself, Kimiko finished peeling her orange just as it was snatched out of her hand. For only a second she sat motionless as a smile stayed frozen on her face before it slowly turned down into a dangerous frown. Bitch who stole my fucking orange, better get your fucking ass out here before I come hunting for my damn food. Slowly coming out of the cover of the tree she was in, Anko looked wide-eyed at Kimiko. Damn Kimiko-chan. I was just messing with you, Anko chuckled as she reached out and dropped the orange she snatched. If I had known you'd go all psycho bitch on me I'd have just said hello. Kimiko caught the falling peeled orange in an outstretched hand and smirked up at Anko. Well maybe next time you'll think before you try to steal a girl's food. Frowning, Anko drops from the tree she was in and glared into the younger girl's smirking face. At first look it seemed like the two girls would soon be coming to blows before much longer, but soon two large goofy grins broke out onto both of their faces as they suddenly hugged each other. Ah, it's nice to see you again Anko Onachan, Kimiko said happily. Anko chuckled and roughly ruffled the young genin's hair. Yeah, it's been kind of boring without you around Gaki, and what did I tell you about calling me Onachan? Just Nichan will do just fine you know. Stepping out of the hug and covering her sly smile while looking away, Kimiko chuckled. But you are my older sister Onachan. My much older sister. Anko's eye twitched at the small jab Kimiko was making at her. The young redhead knew that Anko wasn't that old, but also knew that her age was a sore subject for her, along with a certain two other Kunoichi in the village. After Kimiko stopped chuckling, she began peeling off pieces of her orange and swallowing them. You know you're supposed to chew your food first right? Anko asked with a raised eyebrow as the young girl just shrugged in response. Hopping atop the fallen log she had been sitting on, Kimiko swallowed the rest of her orange in one go and did a little twirl. Anyways, I was looking for you Anko Onachan. I tried to find you a few days ago, but it was like you were hiding from me or something. After blinking for a moment, Kimiko looked at Anko with fake tears in her eyes and trembling lips. Why you weren't trying to avoid me or why you Onachan? Going wide-eyed, Anko rushed over to Kimiko and tried to placate the young Kunoichi. What? No. I wasn't trying to avoid you Gaki. I just got stuck with a mission until I got back just yesterday. Come on, don't go crying on me out here. Grabbing the girl's shoulders, Anko shook her. What did you want? You wanted something right? We can go do it right now no matter what it is. Anko quickly realized her mistake as a devious smile quickly spread across Kimiko's face. Slowly the expression on Anko's face turned from that of slight worry to a blank stare into the distance as she began to regret her words. Fucking hell she whispered as she felt a sudden pain in her pocket. After a few hours of running about and going from one store to the next, Kimiko kicked open the door to her house and waltzed in with 3 clones following in behind her. She merrily swung the one bag that was in her hand about as she went into her kitchen with a smile on her face. Set everything on the counter and then you 3 can go do whatever until you get bored alright. Smiling happily, the 3 copies of Kimiko set down the 3 bags that each of them carried before hurrying out of the room. They're like little kids wait, Kimiko said with a slight chuckle before she noticed that she was talking about herself in a way since they were her. Shaking her head, Kimiko climbed atop the table in the middle of her kitchen and sat down with closed eyes as she began to meditate. When she opened her eyes she found herself in a forest that would resemble the time of autumn to most, but to Kimiko just looked like a dead forest. Dried leaves littered the ground in an assortment of different colors, with the majority of them being black. The trees were all completely bare and looked more frail than any ball of glass had ever been looked upon as. The girl sighed as she began her trek deep into the dead forest. The walk didn't last very long. After a couple of turns and a few stops to push aside a fallen tree, Kimiko found herself standing at the edge of a clearing that was the only area that had any greenery whatsoever. Slowly from where she stood, grass could be seen starting to grow until it finally reached the point that it formed a circular yard around the one tree in the clearing. This tree, unlike all the others that had been seen thus far, was as healthy as could be. While most of the trees were about 3 to 4 times as tall as Kimiko was, the tree before her now was more than triple the height of any of the other average trees. Its bark was a dark brown that looked like even an axe made of pure diamond would be unable to cut it down. Its branches were cluttered with lush green leaves on practically every inch of them. It was the one area in the entire forest that was not completely dead and gave the young woman a feeling of comfort. After just looking at the beautiful scene for a minute, Kimiko walked over to the tree before she began a slow trek up its trunk. The girl took her time and just absorbed the beautiful leaves and let the sight fill her with a happiness that few other things in the world could do. As she broke through into the leafy tree, Kimiko closed her eyes until she no longer felt the leaves caressing her skin. Hello Kimiko, a soft voice that would put Hinata's voice to shame said, it is so nice of you to visit me. Smiling softly, Kimiko opened her eyes. Tilting her head slightly up, the young woman found herself looking into one of the most beautiful faces, outlined with red hair so bright it was practically glowing, that she had ever seen. Hello Kurama-chan, Kimiko said as she walked forward, it has been a while since I last visited you, so I thought I would just drop by if that is fine with you. Kurama smiled at the young woman as she approached. Kurama was a tall woman who always wore a black dress that covered everything but her hands. Her aforementioned hair was usually found being completely straight and flowing all the way down her back. Her eyes were just as bright a red as her hair, if not brighter than it. Her smile was always something that made Kimiko feel happy. "You know you are always welcomed here, my child. You never need to worry about whether or not I'm going to want you around. I know the Kura-chan, but it doesn't hurt to check na," Kimiko said with a small wink as she sat in the lap of the taller woman and looked into her face. "How have you been? The tree has gotten much fuller since the last time I came in here to visit you." Kurama chuckled as she ran a hand through Kimiko's blonde hair. "I have been doing quite well, Miko-chan. You know that this area is all you're doing. This tree and the grass that is growing around it, it all represents the positives that you feel within you. The fact that it has grown as much as it has since you graduated the Ninja Academy is quite remarkable, Miko-chan." "Yeah, maybe," Kimiko chuckled as she tried not to think about the rest of the forest surrounding the one lush tree. "I really owe it to Haku from the mission to Nami no Kuni. If I hadn't met him I would probably still be hiding myself away as that idiot Naruto." Kimiko made slightly disgusted face as she thought of her false persona that was nothing less than horrible to keep up. Kurama shook her head and kissed Kimiko's forehead. "Now you need to give yourself some credit every now and then, Miko-chan. Not only that, but I don't think that Naruto was that bad." Kimiko gave the woman a strange look that said she was insane. "What? I kinda like the personality that you gave him. That never say die attitude that he had and the confidence that he expelled was quite enjoyable. Someone like that could have a story written about then with a TV show and several movies to boot." Kimiko shook her head and snorted. "As if anyone would waste valuable time in their life to write a story about some stupid kid like that. I bet they would probably make the kid appear gayer than a fucking rainbow with Sasuke or someone like that too, I bet. Next you're going to tell me that you would be sealed in him as a male, with only have half of your full chakra instead of all of it and still be called a fucking badass." A knock to the head shut the girl up before she could say any more. "What have I told you about that mouth of yours while you're in this tree, Uzumaki Kimiko? This is the purest place in your entire world, so you don't need to go sullying it with that vulgar language of yours, do you understand?" Kimiko nodded as Kurama chuckled. "Good, as long as you understand that. Plus, even a quarter of my strength is, as you say, badass." After that the two women entered into a comfortable silence. Kimiko let her eyes close as she relaxed into Kurama's body. The soft blow of the wind began to swirl around them as Kurama wrapped her arms around the young woman and began to hum softly in her ear. It was a slow tune that seemed to rise and fall like the waves of the ocean and flow like wind current in the sky. It had the power to calm even the angriest beast down from a horrible rage. As she hummed on, Kimiko snuggled into the woman and thought about how the two first met but quickly shut the memory down as it was too painful for her to think of. Unfortunately, just the thought of the memory was enough to ruin the girl's good mood and unknowingly kill the outer edge of the yard surrounding the tree. "Kura-chan," Kimiko said softly as she slightly opened her eyes and tears began to flow out of them. "Will I ever get over this?" Sighing, Kurama squeezed the girl and arms into her tightly. "Of course," Kurama whispered into the girl's hair. "It's going to take time, just like everything in the world will take some amount of time, but it will get better. You've already made so much progress." Kimiko nodded but began to shake until she felt something soft wrap around her body. Looking down, she saw 3 red tails covering her body as a 4th tail cupped her face and Kurama placed her cheek onto the top of Kimiko's head and began to sing. "Guilty crown uterp, an. I suggest you just listen to the song, it's lovely. Saida no hana yo o wildflower. Adauka shiatiakura, could you please tell me Dito hanes kazutsukat why people hurt each other, Barasu no deshu and fight each other? Rinta saku hana yo o dignified flower. Soko kara nanigami er, what can you see from there? Dito hanes urashi kodo, and why can't people Ekanai no deshu forgive each other? Aim ga sujite natsu ha, in a summer with much rain. Aoi wo utsushita blue was substituted. The Tatsunai nat becoming one. Taisaku Ureta, it faintly wavered. Watashi no maid in front of me. Nani mo wazunai without saying a word. Kareteuku tomo nai, what do you feel? Ami ha nani wo amu, towards a dying friend. Batoba wo matanu sono ha, to how much love can those wordless leaves Nanto I wo tsuteru convey? Natsu no hai hakajet, the summer sun gets clouded. Haze ga nabiita, the wind was swayed by it. Utatsu kasanet, joining them together. Bakita akashi wo, I will sing. Batashi ha yudeyu, the proof of life. Namo naki mano no tame, for those nameless ones. Song end. As Kurama's song slowly came to an end, she smiled down at Kimiko. The girl had slowly drifted into a deep sleep while listening to the beautiful song flow out of the mouth of the woman holding her. Sighing, the woman wrapped the two of them up, using the last of her 5 tails to do so. "Everything is going to be alright, Miko-chan," Kurama said sadly. "I promise you." Outside of her mind, if a person were to look in on Kimiko, they would find a slightly tear-streaked girl curled up into a ball sleeping soundly atop her kitchen table. A week and a half later found all of Team 7 standing just outside the doors of building where the first exam of the Chunin exams were to be held. Sasuke and Sakura would occasionally glance at Kimiko as the three teammates proceeded to open the doors to the building. The girl had started wearing the clothes that she had gotten out of the expense of Anko's wallet instead of her own. She wore a dark blue zip-up jacket that was completely zipped along with a completely black skirt that stopped just above her knees. It wasn't much, but it was not what either of the two genin thought would be worn by their teammate. What truly drew their attention was the color of Kimiko's hair, since last they checked it was blonde and not red. As they walked up to the second floor silently, they caught sight of the commotion that was happening just in front of what was apparently room number 301, the room in which the first part of the exams were supposed to take place. As they slowed their approach, they listened in on what was happening. They watched as a boy with a bowl haircut in a horrible green jumpsuit was knocked down into a crowd of uncertain genin. There were two boys, one with a band-aid on each cheek along with his chin and spiky hair, while the other one had short straight hair with no defining traits, were blocking the door with smirks on their face that seemed to look extremely familiar to Kimiko for some reason. The spiky-haired boy laughed at the fallen boy. "You plan to take the Chunin exams with that?" he said with a sneer. "You should just quit now while you still have a chance. You're just a little kid." The guy's partner in crime nodded in agreement and chimed in with a yeah. The girl, who resembled that of a small panda due to her figure and two buns in her hair, kneeled to the side of the fallen boy. "Please let us through," she begged to the two boys before everyone as she took a step forward to them. A mistake on her part as a swift backhand to her face knocked her away from the boys and made her cry out in slight pain. Gasp rang through the crowd as they started to talk furiously yet with a clear level of nervousness in their voices. The voice of one genin was heard clearly as he called the act horrible. The two door blockers' jovial expressions over causing large mass nervousness among the group quickly turned into glares. "What did you say?" one of them said. "Listen, this is our kindness. The Chunin exams aren't easy, even we have failed it 3 straight times. Those that take this exam and end up quitting as shinobi and kunoichi, those that die during the exam, we've seen it all." At the mention of dying during the exam, Kimiko noticed the shock and horror that registered on Sakura's face and sighed inwardly. Chunins often become captains of military teams. The failure of a mission, the death of a comrade, that's all the captain's responsibility. Yet kids like you think you can pass these exams, we are just thinning out those who will fail anyways. What's wrong with that? The few teams of genin had quickly lost their resolve and walked away from daunting task of taking the exam. Kimiko sighed and looked past the commotion and sighed. She knew exactly what was going on. She knew that the two boys were most definitely not little boys, nor of the lowly genin caliber they were attempting to portray, and they were doing exactly what they said they were doing. They were thinning out the number of competitors who wouldn't be able to handle the situation. This is only the second floor, so that room is obviously under a genjutsu, and I feel like Sasuke is about to screw everything up any moment now, and I'm really tired of this little stink that Sakura seems to be in right now as well. Sighing, the girl cut a look at both of her teammates before walking past everyone as Sasuke began talking. "Just keep walking and don't look back." Traveling the halls on her own was quite relaxing. She didn't have to deal with the uncomfortable silence of being in between a stark silent chatterbox of a girl and the ever-dead silent king of all emos when she was alone. The sound of her own echoing steps flowing down the hall sounded beautiful to Kimiko, and she smiled as she closed her eyes and began to hum. She stayed in that peaceful mindset until she arrived at the true entrance to room number 301, with Kakashi standing there in front of it. Where is Sakura and Sasuke?" Kakashi asked, slightly puzzled. "Did they not decide to come participate in the exams, maybe?" Throwing a glare at the masked man, Kimiko just pulled the hood of her jacket up, crossed her arms, and leaned against the wall, as if Kakashi hadn't said a word at all. Sighing, Kakashi scratched the back of his head sheepishly. Guess you're still mad about your ribbon not being found, I guess. Look, it wasn't like I forgot to look for it, nor that I decided to just flat out not do it." Kakashi would have said more, but was stopped by Kimiko throwing up a hand before sliding down the wall to the ground and promptly falling asleep. Great talk. Unlike Sakura and Sasuke, Kakashi was not surprised by Kimiko's hair color, since he already knew that it was never truly blonde. Kimiko wasn't truly asleep. She had only tuned out the world so heavily that her body reacted as if she had suddenly laid down to bed. What the red-haired kunoichi was truly doing was feeling the chakra behind the closed door of room 301. There were many chakra signatures behind the door. All ranging from the miniature little nothings to those that rivaled or even surpassed her own. There's not a lot of them, but it seems like there are actually some challenging people behind those doors. Well, this could actually turn out to be a bit more enjoyable than I thought, especially if I end up facing off against one of those two. There were 3 signatures that Kimiko had memorized from a few days ago when she noticed an interaction between them and her 2 teammates while she was passing by. The girl gave thought to intervening but found the thought far too troublesome and just watched from afar to get a feel of the 3 strangers that Sakura confronted on behalf of the 3rd Hokage's grandson, Kanahimaru. Sasuke was probably only there for the glory of being the savior of the day, but that doesn't matter. To think there is going to be one other Jinchuriki in these exams is quite the girl's thoughts trailed of as she felt a chakra signature that was similar to Kurama's mixed with someone else's chakra the way any other Jinchuriki's chakra felt. Interesting. Himiko smiled as she finished her thought, thoroughly amused before Kakashi's voice brought her out of her thoughts. "Ah, all 3 of you decided to show up," Kakashi said as Sakura and Sasuke walked down the hallway towards them. "Now we can properly take the exams." Himiko stood slowly with a frown as surprise registered on Sakura's face. "Kakashi-sensei. What are you doing here and what do you mean by properly take the exam?" Putting his hands in his pockets, Kakashi turned so that he could see the entire team. "Simply put, the truth of the matter is that this test can only be taken by teams of 3 genin." Shock registered on Sasuke and Sakura's faces as Kimiko let her hood slide forward to cover her eyes, but a frown showed her obvious displeasure. "Now I know it seems like I lied to the 3 of you about this being an individual choice, but if I told you the truth, Kimiko or Sasuke might have pressured you to take the exam, Sakura. Even if you didn't want to, if Sasuke asked you would, even though if it wasn't in your heart. For the sake of Sasuke and well Kimiko too." Sakura balled her fist into her dress as she looked up at her sensei. "So if only Sasuke-kun and Kimiko had shown up?" She asked, feeling she already knew the answer just like the other 2 did. "Then the exam would have ended here and they would not get to go any further," Kakashi said seriously. "But you came of your own free will, you guys are my proud team after all." Walking past Sasuke and Sakura, Kakashi waved a hand. "Now go on and pass this test." Kimiko rolled her eyes behind her hood as Sasuke and Sakura smiled with renewed confidence they got from their sensei's final words. Turning towards the room, the 3 proceeded to open the door and walk in. As the door closed behind them, the renewed resolve that Sakura had gained was visibly shaken as they took in the room they just entered. "What is this?" she whispered. The room was large and was able to fit a considerable amount of genin into it at once. All of these genin instantly turned their heads towards Team 7 as they entered and the door closed behind them. Sakura shivered slightly as she looked about the room as Sasuke intensified his glare. Sighing, Kimiko quickly inched away from her team to a corner where she could sit in comfort and observe all of the genin in the room without being disturbed. She found she had moved away just in time when Ino launched herself at the slightly surprised Sasuke. It didn't take long for the rest of Team 10 and the members of Team 8 to show up after the girl's appearance. Electing to ignore them all momentarily, Kimiko took stock of the competition in the room. She was able to count that there was roughly more than 60 different genin teams, all hailing from different villages to participate in the exams. She noticed a boy with blood-red hair and a gourd on his back sitting with a guy in what looked like a cat suit for clowns and a woman with a giant blackboard-like item strapped to her back. She recognized them as the 3 Sunanin who had been confronted by Sakura and Sasuke some time back. Having little interest in the catboy or the girl, Kimiko sized up the redhead. He wasn't much shorter than her and seemed to be extremely calm as he appeared to be staring off into nothing. Just from watching him now and remembering how he acted towards Sasuke and his own teammates, she could tell he liked to fight a great deal. The boy most likely loved to kill even more than he liked to fight. "Ah, my younger brother Shikaku, or better known by the humans the Ichibi, is within that child," Kurama said as she spoke out of Kimiko's mind so suddenly that the girl jerked slightly. "He isn't the most stable of us Biju and he loves to torment his Jinchuriki unfortunately. That boy over there may seem like he has it all together, but I bet he is truly deranged and hasn't slept in a very long time. I would advise you to be extremely wary of this character Maiko-chan. You never know what he might try to do." "Yeah, I got that, and can you give some sort of warning before you start talking or something? I'm not used to you talking to me like that, Kura-chan, and it scared the crap out of me alright." Kurama chuckled as she agreed to find a way to announce herself before she began to speaking to Kimiko. "Now let's see if I can find that other Jinchuriki. It seemed like it might have come from now. What the hell is going on over there?" Among Team 7, 8 and 10 sat a boy wearing glasses with short spiky silver hair who was kneeling before them. Kimiko stalked forward so that she could hear what was being said. The silver-haired boy chuckled as he looked at Sasuke who was kneeling beside him alongside Kiba. "There are some guys you're worried about, huh? Anyways, the info on all of this exam's participants isn't perfect, but I do have it. Even about you guys. Say something about these guys and I'll take a look to see if I can find them for you." Narrowing his eyes, Sasuke clenched his fist. "Show me Gaara of Suna, Rock Lee from Konoha and Uzumaki Kimiko from Konoha as well." Surprise registered on everyone's faces as Sasuke asked for information on his own teammate to be revealed out loud in front of potential enemies, but all of them kept quiet about their opinions of the boy's choice. Lasses sighed playful as he waved a deck of cards in front of his face. Oh, you know their names. This should be much easier than it would have been then if you hadn't, but a lot less fun. As the boy swiped 3 cards out of the deck, Kimiko inched closer to the group. Okay, first is Rock Lee. He is a year older than you guys. Mission history. 20 completed D-ranked missions and 12 completed C-rank missions. His sensei is Meisho Guy. The guy's taijutsu has improved greatly in this year, the rest is nothing impressive. Last year he gained attention as a talented genin, but he did not participate in the exams. Like you guys, this is his first time. The members of his team are Hyuga Niji and Tenten. The genin surrounding him were all surprised at the amount of information that was on the small card about one of their own fellow Konoha ninja and made a few of them feel uncomfortable. Next is Gaara, the boy said as he pressed on. Mission history. 8 completed C-rank missions and 1 completed B-rank mission. Wow, a B-rank mission is a genin. That is pretty remarkable. The members of his team are his brother Kankuro and his sister Tamari. Since he's a newcomer from a foreign country, I don't have much info on this guy, but it seems he has returned from all of his missions without even getting a single scratch on him. Sasuke grunted in frustration as the boy moved on to Kimiko's card. Everyone waited a moment as the silver-haired boy glared at the card, as if it offended him. That's strange, he said as he turned the card towards the other genin. I have less on this girl than I have on anyone else. All my cards come with at least a picture of the person, but hers isn't there. Her skills are said to be widely unknown, and that no one has even heard of her until recently. All I have on it is her name and her teammates. Which would be you, Sasuke-kun and Sakura-chan. All around who were able to hear the first 2 information on the cards were surprised at the revelation of the girl's completely blank card. It was a dilemma that the silver-haired boy didn't seem to like. It was at this time that the hooded girl herself decided to appear in between Sakura and Hinata while standing just behind Sasuke himself. What the fuck do you think you are doing, you team? Hinata squeaked softly in surprise as she jerked away from Kimiko's sudden appearance, while Sakura swiftly turned to the girl with surprise written all over her face. It felt like someone had thrown each and every person in the room into a freezer as they all could feel the chilling tension that suddenly came into being. The look on Sakura's face slowly turned from one of surprise to one of slight terror as she began to take slow shivering steps away from Kimiko as Sasuke slowly stood and he turned to face Kimiko. He looked into her eyes with a glare to match hers as he seemed to be trying to use his slight height on her to intimidate her. No one in the room could understand the way the 2 genin were reacting to the girl who had suddenly appeared before them and felt the need to observe the situation. I asked you a question, damn it, Kimiko said with little to no kindness in her voice. What the hell do you think it is that you are doing by trying to reveal information on me in front of so many potential enemies? Sasuke only intensified his glare as he took a threatening step towards Kimiko, which was the mistake he would soon regret. Kimiko sighed before she stepped closer to Sasuke. Don't try and push me here, Che. You may think you're some kind of badass or something, but I can bet over half the genin in her are most likely just cannon fodder. Kind of like you and Sakura. Another step was taken that put Kimiko's fairly large chest against Sasuke's. It forced her to look up at the boy, but with only one menacing eye as the slant of her hair and hood covered the other. If you were to go up against anyone in this room that was even just a little bit of a decent shinobi or kunoichi, you'd struggle just to get the win, possibly even lose. Shinobi and kunoichi on the level of those 2 you just asked about would crush you in a match easily. I bet they could even kill you if they wanted to without even really trying, so here is my warning to you, team. Don't cross me so lightly unless you think you honestly have a chance against me. For what seemed like years the 2 glared at each other. The boy seemed as if he was going to say something before he began to shake. Something from the look in Kimiko's eye was starting to get to Sasuke. Not only that, but he wasn't sure if it was his own imagination, but it seemed as if Kimiko wanted him to say he could beat her, and it unnerved him slightly. Clenching his fist, Sasuke looked down and away from Kimiko, which caused the members of both Team 8, excluding the ever-silent Shino, and Team 10, to gasp in shock at the almighty Uchiha's obvious oath of submission to the shorter girl's words. HMPH. I thought as much, Kimiko said as she brushed past him. Kimiko walked through the throng of people that practically parted for her to walk through. If no one knew who the girl was before, they all got a good long look at her. Uzumaki Kimiko may be a short girl, but she was not someone to be taken lightly. Her message for one was received by all. Finding a spot to sit down not too far away from the group, the hooded girl relaxed into a chair as a shaking Sakura returned to the group with downcast eyes. Kimiko watched as they all began to question the 2 on what exactly had just happened between the 3 teammates. The only ones not asking questions were Shino, who didn't seem to care and rarely talked anyways, and Shikamaru, who was looking at Kimiko with a frown as he had known Kimiko as she was before becoming Naruto and found this girl not to be the same as the one he had met a long time ago. The Naruto she had become was much closer than the girl he was looking at. As the Genin team from Itakaga attacked the silver-haired boy for some reason involving village pride or something, Kimiko looked around and spotted what she had been looking for originally. A girl who wore an orange clip in her short spiky mint green hair that matched her orange eyes. She wore a short sleeveless white midriff shirt with fishnet armor underneath, long wide armlets, and fishnet shorts with a short wide apron skirt over it. Her forehead protector was worn on her right arm with the symbol for Takigakure on it. She also carried a cylindrical object in red wrapping on her back that made Kimiko slightly curious. Well, now she's looking pretty cute over there with a biju locked up in her. Kimiko let a slight giggle escape her lips at her own thoughts. As everyone seemed to be talking loudly at once, a large explosion of smoke appeared at the front of the room. "Quiet down, you worthless bastards." As the smoke cleared, it revealed a number Konoha Chunin behind a man with a trench coat on. "Thanks for waiting, I am Marino Ibiki, the examiner for the Chunin selection exam's first test." The man's intimidating appearance caused many of the genin to shiver as he pointed over at the group that was causing a bunch of commotion. "Itakaga guys, stop doing as you please before the exam. Do you want to fail already?" The boy, who appeared to be the leader of the team, turned his bandaged head towards the examiner. "I apologize," he said. "This is our first time, we got a bit carried away." Kimiko doubted that was the reason that the three Odonin had flown off the handle the way that they had, and the examiner quite obviously didn't believe them either. Ibiki sighed. "Here's a good opportunity to say this: there will be no fighting without the permission of the examiner. Even if permission is granted, intentionally killing your opponent will not be tolerated. Those pigs that disobey me will be failed immediately. Do I make myself clear?" As many of the genin mumbled among themselves, the other male on the Odo team sneered. "This exam is sounding like it's going to be a cakewalk to me." Ibiki ignored the boy as the Chunin behind him snickered. "We will now start the first exam of the Chunin exams. Instead of your current seating arrangements, you will pick one of these tabs and sit in the seat that is assigned to you. We will then hand out the exams." Kimiko was surprised to find that it would be a paper test, but shrugged it off. She got a tab that put her in the exact seat she was currently sitting in. As she sat waiting for everyone else to get seated, Kimiko twirled a few strands of her hair aimlessly. "Kimiko-chan," Hinata said as she sat down next to the girl and the tests were set down in front of them face down. "Let's do our best." Kimiko nodded at the shy girl and gave her a small smile. "Do not turn over your tests over yet," Ibiki said. "Listen closely to what I'm about to say. There are many important rules to this first exam. I'll write it on the board while I explain, but questions will not be allowed, so listen carefully." Relaxing into her chair, Kimiko listened as Ibiki spoke. As she listened to the rules, the hooded girl slowly began to smile. While she found some of the rules to be stupid and redundant, the rule about cheating was the only one she needed to hear before she understood what the entire first exam was about. She personally knew who Marino Ibiki was and knew what it was he did for a living, and that all led to the test basically being handed to her on a silver platter, as far as Kimiko was concerned. Once they were allowed to start the test, Kimiko flew through the questions that she was able to work through before flipping her test over and laying her head down with a smile on her lips. Most of the genin here that have brains will most likely just understand the questions and go right through them before the others who know what the true meaning of this test truly is finds a way to cheat off of them. "I'm so fucking smart, I deserve a pat on the back." Chuckling, Kimiko fell into a comfortable nap for the rest of the exam. Kimiko woke to the sound of small celebrations as Ibiki once again congratulated the remaining teams on passing through the exams. The girl rubbed her eyes and looked around to see who was left in the room. She wasn't surprised to find that a little over half of the teams had disappeared from the room. She sighed in relief when she saw Sakura and Sasuke were still sitting in their respective chairs with smiles on their faces. Teams 8 and 10 had also survived Ibiki's mind games to get through to the next exam. The Odo team that had attacked the glasses-wearing boy was still in the room, as well as the two teams that housed the other two Jinchuriki in the exams. Good, I would have been disappointed if those two didn't make it through the exam. This thing can still get interesting. As the small celebrating continued, it was cut short as a small purple ball came flying through and smashed through the glass of a window as it came into the room. Surprised registered on everyone but Ibiki's faces as glass flew everywhere and a banner was suddenly erected in an instant. The banner blocked as a woman spun around stood in front of the banner. "You guys. This is no time for celebrating. I am the examiner for the second exam, Mitarashi Anko. Now let's go, follow me." Silence enveloped the room as Kimiko slowly let her head fall to the desk with a soft thump. I love my Onich and I love her so much, but she is so." Ibiki pulled the banner away slightly as he peeked around at Anko, who had struck a slight pose. "Bad timing," was all the man said to her as everyone just stared at her. Looking for anything to draw attention away from herself, Anko counted the number of remaining genin and was surprised at the remainder. 132. She said while looking at the first examiner accusingly. Ibiki. You left 44 teams, the test was too easy this time. Ibiki merely chuckled. This time there are a lot of outstanding ones. Whatever. That's fine. Anko turned towards group of genin. I'll cut them in half in the second exam at the least. Surprise etched its way into the faces of many. Ah, I'm starting to get excited. I'll explain everything once we have changed places, so follow me now. As everyone followed Anko out of the room, Kimiko made sure that she was right next to the examiner as they walked on. Without looking at her, Anko sighed. Don't you dare say a fucking word, you hear me, Kimiko-chan. Not a single fucking word. For a while Kimiko was silent as they walked before she bowed her head. I'll always love you, Anko Onachan, I'll always love you. And tears trailed down Anko's cheeks as they walked on. Shut up. I had it all planned out perfectly. It should have upped my coolness level, that entrance. Before they reached the place where she was taking all the genin, Anko shook off her depression of her failed entrance and separated herself from Kimiko. When they finally stopped, the group was in front of a large fenced-in forest that read danger and keep out every 15 feet of fence. Looking back at the genin with a smile, Anko spoke. Welcome to the stage for the second exam of the Chunin exams. Practice Area 44, also known as the Forest of Death. Many genin began to grumble and wonder at the nickname of the forest, as Anko enjoyed their uncertainty. You'll find out why it's called the Forest of Death soon enough, so pipe down. Now before we start the second exam, there's something I have to pass out. Anko whipped out a stack of papers with a smile on her face. You must sign these agreement forms. There will be deaths in this part of the exam, and if I don't have you sign these, it will be my responsibility. People gasped as Anko trudged on. I'm going to explain the exam first, then you can sign it if you still want to participate afterwards. After that, then each team will check in at that booth behind me. Now in a nutshell, you will be attempting the ultimate capture the flag inside the forest behind me here. Around practice area number 44 are 44 locked gates. Forest, rivers, and a tower at the center. From the gates to the tower is about 10 kilometers. During your survival in here, you will be asked to complete a certain task. Using your many weapons and jutsus, you will compete in a no-rules scroll battle. A random genin raised his hand as he questionably repeated the word scroll, to which Anko replied, yes. You will fight over these two scrolls. The heaven and the earth. There are 132 people here, meaning that there are 44 teams of you genin. Half of you will get the heaven scroll, and the other half will get the earth scroll. Now what does that mean to you, my little genin? Shikamaru lazily raised his hand and scratched the back of his head. That there is going to be 22 copies of both the Heaven and Earth scroll, right? He asked. That's part of it. To pass this test, your team must make it to the center tower with both scrolls in hand. Everyone instantly understood her previous remark in room 301 when she declared that she would be cutting the number of teams and genin in at least half. There was no way for more than half of what was left to make it through. But there's a time limit, Anko said warningly. This exam will last a total of 120 hours. That is exactly 5 days that you could be spending inside the forest hunting for the adjourning scroll to the one you have. Ino and Choji raged slightly at the number of days that they could possibly be spending in the forest. 5 days, Ino hollered as Choji cried about what they were supposed to do about food in the forest, namely dinner. You're on your own, Anko said in reply to Choji's complaint. The forest is full of food. Just watch out for the man-eating beast, poisonous insects, and other things. Just so you know, 22 teams passing is not a likely outcome in this forest. As the days go on, the distance to the goal will become further away to you, and the time to rest will become shorter with each passing moment. The area is crawling with enemies, so you won't be able to get much sleep. So not only will some be failing by losing their scroll, but a number of you may die from the harshness of this course. Now I'll talk about what will disqualify you from the exam. First, those that don't make it to the tower with both scrolls in hand within the given time limit obviously fail. Second, those who lose a teammate or those who have a teammate killed before reaching the tower. As a rule, there is no quitting in the middle of this exam. Once you enter, you are in there for the full 5 days no matter what the situation. Anko looked like she was about to stop talking when something else struck her. Oh, and before I forget, there is just one more teeny tiny rule. You must not look inside the scroll until you make it to the inside of the tower. If you decide you just have to open the scroll, well, I hope you enjoy the surprise. Anko pocketed her hands in her tan trench coat. A Chunin will be asked to handle and deliver classified information from time to time. This is to test your trustworthiness. You won't always know what you are transporting. That is it for the explanations. Exchange the 3 forms of your team for your scroll. Then choose a gate once you have done that and get ready to start. As everyone started walking about, talking amongst gemsels and signing their forms, Kimiko and her team turned in their signed forms and received a scroll. Choosing gate number 7 for luck, the team waited for the exam to start. Being the one who was given the scroll, Kimiko shoved the scroll down in her jacket until Sasuke complained. I think the scroll would be better off if it was in more capable hands. Dope. Hand over the scroll so I can take care of it. Sakura nodded in agreement with Uchiha but kept her distance from the two. Kimiko debated on what she should do. While knocking the boy out sounded like a really appeasing idea, she knew that she needed him fully functioning for the exam. Without a word she gave the scroll to the boy who smiled smugly. For once you actually made a good decision. Before Kimiko could do any damage to the prize of Konoha, Anko's voice cut through the air. The second exam of the Chunin exams now begins. As she finished talking the gate before flew open and they ran through it immediately. Now let's see what this year's crop of genin have to offer, Anko thought with a smile as she watched teams disappear into the forest. Now what is this slip of paper Kimiko-chan handed me? Sitting in the Jonin lounge with Asuma and Kurenai, Kakashi shivered violently. He blinked as the other two looked at him awkwardly. Why did I feel like I just died 100 times over? Kimiko sighed as she sat silently in the tree above her teammates as the two started up a fire for the night. It was the end of the first day inside of the Forest of Death and they had nothing but a few cuts and brushes from running through tree branches. The only one with any real injuries thus far had been Sakura and one of them was written off as a freak accident. The first day had just been all around terrible for Team 7 as it started off bad and only snowballed downhill from that point forward. Seriously, Kimiko thought to herself as she looked down at the Sasuke and Sakura as the two began cooking their caught fish on the fire. What kind of luck do you need to be lacking to for shit to start off like this? The start to the test wasn't as horrible for Team 7 as it was just plain embarrassing for what occurred. The team of genin had maybe made it 100 or so feet into the forest before Sakura tripped out a root growing out of the ground of the forest floor. Flying forward, Sakura face planted hard and skidded towards a nearby bush before stopping. Both Kimiko and Sasuke were completely unsure as to how to react to what they had just seen happen to the young girl. On one hand the shit was funny as hell to both of them and you would have to be a fool if you didn't laugh at the girl's misfortune so early off. On the other hand it was just extremely embarrassing to witness happening and didn't dignify a response from anyone of upstanding class. So of course as Sakura slowly stood up and wobbled back over to her teammates, Sasuke was impatiently looking at their surroundings as Kimiko was doubled over in a fit of giggles. Yeah, thanks for the help there, Sakura said as she got back to the two. I mean it wasn't like the ground just tore off few parts of my face and messed up my hair. Sasuke grunted as Kimiko calmed herself down. Now Miss Klutz, it wasn't all that bad. You at least made it into the forest before almost being killed by a treard. Sakura huffed as she began pulling fallen leaves and twigs out of her hair. There were a few cuts on her face from skidding on the ground, but none of them were so bad that they needed any kind of treatment from anyone. Don't start squabbling here, Sasuke said gaining a glare from Kimiko for his words. Now isn't the time for your emotions to be getting the best of you. Sakura smiled widely as she nodded vigorously and Kimiko just rolled her eyes as she stuffed her hands into her jacket pockets. We should make a plan to get through this forest as fast as possible. The quicker we get out of a place like this the better. At least I have emotions, Kimiko mumbled to herself as the three genin began to jog through the forest. So I'm guessing that you already have some sort of plan all laid out for us, your majesty, the hooded redhead said with a slight drawl in her voice. Sasuke glanced at her as they walked but stayed silent. If you have one I am sure that Sakura would be just as interested to hear what it is as I am if not 1,000 times more. Still nothing came out of the lone Uchiha's mouth as the three continued forward. The lack of an answer quickly irritated Kimiko. Oi. Fucker, if you got a plan share it with us already, you bastard. Kimiko. Sakura gasped at the girl's language as Sasuke whipped around with a very apparent frown on his face. As he paced towards Kimiko the girl smiled and leaned forward slightly in anticipation. Come on you guys, calm down, Sakura said with worry as she stepped in between the two. We can't start fighting each other here. I mean we haven't even gotten that deep into the forest. We've gotten far enough in, Sasuke said cryptically as he took up a fighting stance. Sakura was unsure of what exactly was happening. Both Sasuke and Kimiko seemed dead set on using this chance to tear into each other and there was nothing that she could realistically do without getting herself most likely hurt in the process. Making a tight fist she decided she would stop them anyways, just as the first group of giant spiders fell all around Team 7. All of them varied in sizes, but none of them were smaller than the three genin. They were coated in thick brown and black fur that looked more prickly than soft. A strange clear fluid coated their fangs and slowly dripped down from them. We've gotten far enough into the forest for the test to truly begin. Smiling wickedly, Kimiko quickly lashed out at the closest spider to her with a kunai. Letting out a shrill shriek that agitated its brethren, the giant spider recoiled as Kimiko's kunai sliced through half of its eyes. As the arachnid pulled away from her, Kimiko launched the kunai in her hand with all her strength at the head of the spider. But the soft thunk and squelch it sunk into the spider's head, killing it instantly. There was a moment's pause as the spider convulsed and fell back before curling in on itself. As soon as it was completely still, the attack began. Himiko was quickly surrounded by 3 spiders that launched themselves at her with dripping fangs and trailing web. Freeing her left hand from her pocket as she spun around, the girl unleashed her seversword from it and sliced them all in half with the ease of pushing a steak knife through butter. As her rotation came to a stop, she dropped the tip of the blade into the ground beside her. Tear these overgrown pieces of shit into even smaller pieces of shit. Yeah. 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 Kimiko could barely contain a slightly crazed giggle as she suddenly charged forward with more of the insects leaping out at her. Sakura watched in awe as Kimiko began to tear through a group of spiders as if they were no more than playthings to her. She watched as her teammate twisted amongst their ranks and cut apart anything that came near her. It was hard to tell whether there was any technique in Kimiko's wild attacks or whether or not the girl was just going plain crazy on the unfortunate spiders. Looking behind her, Sakura saw Sasuke weaving about the enemy with a great amount of speed as he continuously released a mixed hail of shuriken and kunai that cut into their eyes and large abdomens. After he was done using the insects like target practice, Sasuke quickly whipped through a set of hand signs. Fire style. Phoenix flower jutsu. As multiple bullets of fire slammed into them, the spiders shrieked as they burned. The young girl was slightly amazed by what she was seeing her teammates do to the spiders, but more so she was terrified. To the knowledge of very few people, none of whom was on her team, Sakura had a major case of arachnophobia. Slow but surely the terror she felt drove away all the awe that the girl felt and left her trembling. She stumbled backwards until she bumped into something that was uncomfortably moist and sticky. Whipping around, the young Kunoichi found herself face to face with one of the largest spiders of the group. I'm dead. Now what happened next could have viably happened to just about anyone who found themselves in the same situation as the pink-haired girl. Yes, what she did was even more embarrassing than tripping over a root away she had early, but this could have happened to anyone. While staring dead into the eyes of the spider, Sakura slowly slid to her knees. She hardly registered the warm fluid that steadily ran down her thighs as she completely stopped shaking like a small animal. For Sakura, everything seemed to slow down and stop. The spider was slowly reaching out to her as the liquid on its fangs began to thicken. The sounds around her muffled into nothingness. Her widened eyes looked forward and tunneled into the spider's eyes as her body refused to respond to her commands. Mind completely numbed by terror, there was nothing that she could do to save herself from the now hopeless situation that she found herself in. All she could do was watch in horror as the spider slowly closed in on her and her mind began to shut down. Sasuke-kun, Kimiko, somebody save me. Humming to herself, Kimiko stomped down on the face of one spider as she slashed through one that jumped above her. The spider she stood atop of wildly flailed in an attempt to launch the hooded girl off of it. Hey you. Kimiko hissed as she reeled back her weapon like a baseball bat. Calm the fuck down. With a swing, the girl cleanly cleaved the spider's lower half off. She flipped into the air as strands of sticky web were shot in her direction before more spiders came crawling down them. Landing on the trunk of a tree behind her, Kimiko looked around herself lazily. So far nothing spectacular had occurred. Spiders attack from above, cut them in half. Spiders attack from behind, spin around and cut them in half. Spiders attack head-on, curb stomp the stupid fucker's face in, and then cut them in half. Honestly, what can a bunch of spiders do against a stamina freak wielding a giant sword? Ah. This is so freaking boring, Kimiko thought as she dodged to the side as a large group spiders that came after her one after another. Each time she dodged one spider to just bring down the seversword down through its midsection before hopping to the side to do the same to the next one. Hiding Sakura with a toothpick in her hand would be more of a challenge for me than these stupid things are. Stabbing the seversword into the ground in time for a spider to charge at it and cut itself in half, Kimiko turned around with a frown. Speaking of Miss Bubblegum, where did holy shit? Kimiko's eyes widened as she caught sight of the spider attacking Sakura. She watched as the spider's fangs tore into the girl's shoulder and tossed her to the ground. Quickly it scuttled atop her before rapidly moving all 8 of its legs. Faster than she thought any of the spiders could move, Kimiko watched as Sakura was bitten, tossed, covered up, and wrapped in web. And now said girl was being dragged away in her cocoon to Lord knows where. Damn it all. Sasuke, roast as many of these things as you can and catch up to me. I'm going after that spider. And Sakura. Picking the blade out of the dirt and shoving it back into her jacket pocket, the girl rushed after her captured teammate. Sasuke bit back a growl as he released another volley of miniature fireballs at a group of spiders while backpedaling. Like Kimiko, he had witnessed what had happened to Sakura. He had started to rush to the girl's aid but was cut off by a few spiders who burned in their attempt to do the same thing to him. The young Uchiha did not like having to do what his teammates said since it was the equivalent of taking orders from the girl, but he knew that the enemy had to be taken out. After dodging a few lunging spiders, a smirk grew on the edge of Sasuke's face. HN. This situation might be useful to me. For what better test of survival than this? For fuck's sake, slow down already. Kimiko tailed the spider that carried Sakura as it seemed to increase its speed by the second. Damn it. Seriously already. How the fuck is this thing outpacing me? She was not too far behind the fast-moving insect, but she was not yet close enough to do anything to stop the spider's progress. Well, at least without harming Sakura in the process of doing so. It was quite odd though. The spider was running away from Kimiko. Yes, that much was apparent, but at the same time it seemed to be moving with a destination in mind. Like there was somewhere it had to get Sakura to at all cost. Maybe a web to attach her to for slow eating. Maybe to a horde of more giant spiders. Or maybe, something that would be way worse than both of the two combined. Kimiko? You must stop that spider now. Kurama's voice rang out urgently in Kimiko's mind, making the girl flinch slightly. Wherever it is trying to get to is not good. Stopping it now at the risk of hurting your teammate is much better than waiting to find out where it's taking the girl. Kimiko sighed as she gave a mental nod. I got you, Kura-chan. I'll get that thing right now. Reaching into her pocket, she withdrew the sever's word and began channeling chakra into it. She slowly let the blade fall behind her. Kimiko mentally took aim at the head of the arachnid. Well, maybe this will work out perfectly and Sakura will come out of this unscathed. As the blade fell back, she began steadily pouring more and more of her chakra into it. Once it reached the point of pointing directly out behind her, Kimiko twisted her body and launched it forward with all of her strength. With a fine line of violet outlining the blade, it flew through the forest ahead of her. It spun point over hilt while cutting through all branches in its way and tearing chunks out of trees. The thumping of its spin vibrated out as it neared the unsuspecting spider. Keeping up with the spider still, the girl watched as the blade got closer and closer to its target. For a reason completely unbeknownst to Kimiko, the spider stopped running abruptly just seconds before the sword would impact it. The girl's eyes widened at her fucked up luck. You've got to be fucking kidding me. Audibly smashing into the ground, the sever's word sliced off the head of the spider. It was only able to give out a small screech before its head fell to the ground and its body convulsed before rolling over and curling into itself. Dropping down next to the severed head of the spider, Kimiko punted it away as hard as she could. You piece of shit. Making me chase after you like that. The girl sighed and shook her head before turning towards the cocoon girl with a slight frown. She scratched the top of her head through her hood as she looked down. There was a cut that went across the cocoon that Sakura was in. It was obvious that the sever's word was the culprit. There was no doubt at that since the blade was stuck in the ground right next to the cocoon. What was really the problem was that Kimiko was unable to tell if the cocoon was the only thing that her weapon had cut into. Damn, the hooded girl said as she plucked up her sword and slammed it back into her pocket. If that stupid ass spider wouldn't have stopped running like it did, then I would have never even have touched the stupid cocoon. She lightly kicked the cocoon with the tip of her shoe for emphasis. Kurama chuckled slightly in her mind. If I recall correctly, she said cautiously, that wasn't what you were thinking before you had no choice to throw it. Even as you were about to, you still weren't sure if you were gonna be able to miss hitting the girl in there. The fox's amused yet cautious chuckling did not sit well with Kimiko at all. What are you talking about? She thought as she reached down and tried to pick up the silk cocoon. She quickly found her hand stuck to it and used all of her force to push it away with the bottom of her foot. Fortunately it freed her hands, but now her shoe was stuck to it. Growling, Kimiko stuck her other shoe to the cocoon as she proceeded to take them off. I'll just leave them there. Anyways, I totally had the situation under control from the beginning. All I had to do. What are you doing? The girl could feel the demonic chakra slowly coursing throughout her system. Since the moment Kimiko punted away the spider's head, Kurama had been steadily feeding demonic chakra into it. What is the first thing I ever taught you, Maiko-chan? A slight crunching sound from above made Kimiko look up. Always pay attention to your surroundings no matter what the situation is. Kimiko's face slowly went from an expression of pure confusion to one that just screamed this shit is total bullshit. It was only now that she was realizing that the area she was in was uncharacteristically dark even for the forest of death. The only explanation for said darkness had no other choice than to be the massive spider's web that hung above her, blocking off much of the sunlight. The web stretched in all directions as far as Kimiko could see and most likely even further in some areas. Amongst the web were many silk cocoons of every shape and size attached to it. Some of them swung lifelessly in the wind, while others seemed to wiggle around slightly with its contents, trying to figure a way out of its new, and most likely last, home. As she looked around at the web and its cocoons, Sasuke dropped down next to her. Lovely, isn't it? She said without looking in the young Uchiha's direction. His sole response was a soft grunt as he too looked around. Both of the genin looked around in circles until another soft crunch was heard above them. Instantly Sasuke fell into a fighting stance as Kimiko slightly tilted her head in the direction of the sound. Kura-chan, what's coming? What did you give me your chakra to fight against? The soft crunch was heard again, and the two team members glared in the direction. You have it all wrong, Kurama said calmly. The soft crunch came again, and then again, and then again. Whatever was heading in their direction was picking up speed. I didn't give you my chakra to fight what is coming. A loud screech that deafened the two genin and made them cover their ears as they squeezed their eyes shut. When the screech stopped, they slowly began opening their eyes before they popped all the way open. It was so that you can run away. Without even a second's thought or even a word to each other, Sasuke and Kimiko turned on their heels and ran with Kimiko attaching the cocoon Sakura to her back. Another screech ripped through the forest as the two began leaping through the trees themselves to give them both that extra small boost in their speed. Neither dared look back to see if they were being chased by what they saw, but risked a short glance at each other. In the one wordless instant, the two genin both agreed unanimously that what just happened was never to be spoken of, and if anyone asked them about what happened, they just performed a tactical retreat, and that was the end of the story. Eventually the two stopped running and found a place to settle down into for the night. They took that time to cut the silk cocoon off of Kimiko's back with a kunai and then cut Sakura herself out of the cocoon. The pink-haired girl was ever so slightly paralyzed from the poison on the fangs of the spider that took her away. It would take a few minutes, but in time the paralysis will wear off. In the meantime, shooing away Sasuke to find some good wood to start a fire and stones to contain said fire, Kimiko took off Sakura's shirt and treated her wounds. There were 2 large punctures in her back along with a long cut from the top of her right shoulder to the tip of her left hip. Kimiko felt slightly bad for cutting the girl, but blamed the spider more than anything else. She quickly set about patching the other girl's wounds as her paralysis wore away. The ever-so-fearless Kimiko and the almighty Uchiha ran away together in fear of what they saw, Kurama teased as Kimiko looked down at her teammates from her post. Oh, what would their ever-so-die-hard fans think of such an atrocious act being performed by their unwavering idols? Oh, the horror they must be having. Furiously growling, Kimiko kicked out at the trunk of the tree she was in. She crossed her arms and pouted slightly like she was no more than a child. For the last time, Kura-chan, we did not run away. We made a hasty and tactical retreat in the face of adversity to ensure the survival of our down and injured teammate. For a moment silence reigned as Kimiko waited for Kurama's response. When no response came from the demon fox, the girl rested against the tree's trunk with a victorious smirk on her face. In other words, you both ran away like scared little girls, Kurama giggled. Sighing in defeat, Kimiko rubbed her face. She looked around at her surroundings and found nothing of note. Below her, Sasuke and Sakura had built the fire they were supposed to and promptly fell asleep afterwards. Looking at them made the girl frown as a single thought rippled throughout her mind. Stop it, Kimiko. They are your teammates still and you will not leave them here to get the other scroll. Now get it here, young lady, before I force you in here. I can feel if anything happens and will let you know if you need to react when I let you leave. Rolling her eyes slightly, Kimiko closed her eyes and fell into her mind. Opening her eyes, she found herself staring out at the dead forest that surrounded the lush greenery below her. She stood up and looked down at the large branch she stood on and smiled happily. Guess there really is a first time for everything, huh? Quickly scaling up the tree and into the opening inside the tree's leaves, Kimiko greeted Kurama. Hello, Kura-chan. I'm liking the new dress you have on. It goes wonderfully with your hair and eyes. The fox demon was draped in a sparkling purple dress that covered her feet but left her beautifully bright skin open to the world. The sparkling purple seemed to make her eyes and hair even more radiant than they usually were and would make any person question how someone who appeared to be so elegant could be looked at as a nothing but a demon to be feared or used for its power. Kurama shook her head. Why, thank you, Kimiko, I appreciate your compliment, but you aren't in any kind of trouble, so stop trying to butter me up already. Kimiko giggled as she scratched the back of her head and stuck out the tip of her tongue good-naturedly. Beckoning her with a finger, Kurama took a few steps forward. Now come here and let me cuddle my daughter. The red-haired girl rolled her eyes with a happy smile as she walked towards Kurama. The girl lazily fell head-first into the fox as she wrapped her arms around the woman. What would my mother think if she knew how much I think of you as my mother instead of her? Kurama slowly wrapped her arms around Kimiko and laid down softly onto the leaves. She let her tails gently caress Kimiko as the young girl snuggled into her. Your mother, well indeed saddened by that fact, would be so happy to know that you have someone, Miko-chan. Neither she nor your father wanted you to grow up without parents to be by your side and help you along in life. Both of them would be happy that you had a mother figure somewhere, no matter who it might be. A sad smile rested on the young girl's face. She truly wished that she could have met her mother and got to know her firsthand. The girl also wished that Kurama would just tell her who exactly her father was. Saying that he was a great man whom her mother loved like no other was not enough for the young girl, but she would settle for it until a later date. For now she would be happy for finding a mother within Kurama. I should be watching for enemies coming, not resting like this, Kimiko said as her eyes closed and she snuggled into Kurama's chest. Kurama shook her head. You need just as much rest as those two and any other person, Maiko-chan. As for watching for enemies, I can take care of that. Trust in me to do that, child. I will not knowingly let harm fall upon you or your team. The fox demon waited for a response to calling Kimiko a child. She was quite used to the young girl defending her pride as a full-grown woman, but no such response came from the girl. It was very rare for there to be no response. Looking down, a small smile rested on the woman's face as she looked into the peacefully sleeping face of Kimiko. To her, the sight of such innocence was something to be treasured. Unfortunately, even such innocence can be tainted by the harsh and unforgiving events that life has the ability to deal out. Oh my dear Maiko-chan, Kurama said as a faint aura of an unsightly dark purple enveloped the young girl and made her face scrunch up in pain as her breathing became irregular. How I wish to rid you of this pain forever. She swept her tails gently around the girl until the aura began to fade and Kimiko once again became peacefully dormant. A mother who can barely protect her daughter from her own nightmares. What am I to do? Holding the girl closely, a single tear as blue as the sky rolled down both the mothering fox's face. Wake up. Sakura freaked out as she felt herself being forced awake by someone. It didn't help her freaking that she felt something being pushed onto her face that reminded her of her silk confinement. With a screech, the girl lashed out with her fist. A few times she connected with something solid. Hey. Ouch. Stop it, you bitch. The hard knock on the top of the head made the young girl temporarily stop before she frantically wiped at her face. Sakura blinked open her eyes to find an irritated Kimiko standing in front of while rubbing her chest. She also found a good amount of dirt littering her clothes. What did you kick dirt onto me? Kimiko shrugged at the other girl's accusing glare. You're up, aren't you? Plus you were in the way of the fire. Kimiko pointed at the pile of wood that was covered in dirt. With a pout, Sakura dusted herself off as she stood up. Anyways, make sure all your stuff is still good to go. We're heading out to find the other scroll soon. Sakura rubbed the remaining dirt away from her face as she looked around. She quickly noticed that she saw no trace of her crush. Where is Sasuke-kun? We can't leave without him. An eye roll was all the girl received from her teammate. No, seriously. Where is Sasuke-kun? If you think we're going to leave him behind for 1 second, then you got another thing coming. The frown stuck on Sakura's face as she placed her hands on her hips. Don't tell me you two are going to start arguing as soon as you wake up. Sasuke strolled out of the trees with a frown as he looked at the two girls. If that's really all you two are going to do now, then can you at least save it for when we aren't surrounded by nothing but potential enemies? Now, are you guys ready to go or not? Both girls nodded even though one of them still had not checked to make sure all of her stuff was as it should be. Yeah. We're ready to go. Seriously, who died and deemed you leader of this team? DCH. Turning around, Sasuke strolled back into the forest with Sakura trailing close behind him and Kimiko quickly taking to the low branches of the trees. I checked the surrounding area and there is a team not too far from where we are now. Only one of them was awake and she didn't seem that intimidating. Not only that, but she was obviously tired. If we get there soon, we should be able to catch them all off guard while they're just waking up. Sounds like an easy team to me, Kimiko said from above. We probably don't even need to use anything all too powerful against this team. The others nodded in agreement as they all took off to quickly take away the team's scroll and get out of the forest as fast as possible. They would finish with 2 or 3 days to spend relaxing at the tower in the middle of the forest. That's exactly what would have happened too had they not immediately been blindsided by an unrealistically powerful gust of wind. Being caught by the wind, they were all thrown to the side like rag dolls. Sakura and Sasuke were slammed into a couple of trees before falling to land on the ground, with the Uchiha immediately assuming a defensive stance. Unfortunately for Kimiko, she was forced much further away from the other two. It was as if she was hit by the center force of whatever drove the wind. Spiraling through the air, Kimiko did her best to try and slowly reduce the speed at which she was moving. She tried grasping onto passing branches only to miss them or have them break off. Curling into a ball only seemed to make her fly even faster and aid in making her overtly dizzy. Oh dear lord, I can't handle this. Maiko-chan, just calm down. You just need to figure out how to at least grab onto something that won't break. Or try to catch onto a tree and stick to it with your hands like you would with your feet. No, oh no. Just as that thought passed through her mind, Kimiko slammed back first into a tree. The breath was forcefully driven from her body just before she lost whatever content her stomach may have contained. The girl dropped and landed on her side as she continued to puke next to her. As her stomach began to settle, the girl groaned and rolled onto her back. Slowly her breath returned as well. Oh dear, Kami, never let that happen again. A rough cough racked her body as she rolled into a kneeling position. That was just horrible. A soothing warmth began to fill the girl's stomach. I should have known that was what was wrong with you, Kurama giggled. Only you, Maiko-chan. Only you. Ugh, how can you laugh at a girl's pain like that? If I ever have this happen to me again, I'm going to die. Kurama fell into a fit of laughter at the young girl's over-exaggerated pain. As the fox laughed, Kimiko rolled onto her hands and knees. She wiped her mouth with the back of her hand before freezing in place. Slowly looking up, the girl found herself staring into the deadly eyes of a giant lightly colored snake. A full minute of silence with the only sound being the hissing of the snake passed until the hooded girl sighed. Fuck my lee, before she could even finish her sentence, the snook struck out and swallowed her and the surrounding ground whole. Faye. I don't think your life is that terrible, Maiko-chan. You just have a horribly low grade of luck when it comes to certain situations. Like this one now. Yeah. Speaking of this situation, why didn't you warn me that a freaking snake the size of my fucking apartment building was coming to attack me? Oh, that I was too busy laughing at you to get it out before it was pretty much far too late for my warning to keep you from being eaten. I freaking hate you for this. You love me. Kimiko grimaced as she slid down the inside of body of the snake continuously. She was not finding her current position to be anywhere near what she ever thought she could possibly end up. The slime that she was being covered in repulsed her in both feeling and scent. Whereas she could feel that it was slowly draining away her chakra to keep her struggling against the snake's will. Oh dear Kami, can it get any worse than this? Don't you dare answer that, Kurama. The fox demon chuckled in the girl's head. Ugh, the young girl thought as she closed her eyes against the slime. I can't take this much longer. I need to get out of here before it starts actually digesting me or something even worse. She twisted as much as she could and hoped that she was facing towards the back of the snake. Kimiko clenched her fist as she began to concentrate greatly. Her fist began to gain a faint purple shine to it as chakra built up inside of it. She struggled to turn it so that her thumb was pointing away from and exhaled a heavy breath from her nostrils. Her fist glowed even brighter as she began to pull it down. Wind style. Gale force palm. Opening her fist, Kimiko thrusted her palm up with all might as a violent wind tore into the back of the snake. From the outside view, everything looked quite fine and peaceful. The breeze was blowing slightly across the tree leaves. The sound of a nearby stream trickling along made the surrounding view serene. Insects could be heard sounding off in harmony with the stream. A giant snake falls from the treetops dead with its back ripped wide open. The impact shaking the ground and silencing everything. Ugh, that sucked, Kimiko said as she slowly pulled herself out of the snake's back. She coughed as she fell over the edge of its torn apart skin. I never want to experience that again. The girl stood and stumbled over to the nearby stream before dropping herself into it. She splashed about wildly to get rid of all the slime that was on her body before standing up again. You know, Maiko-chan, I could have burned away all of the slime on you with just a little bit of my chakra, Kurama said softly. The young Kunoichi silently stared down at the water below her blankly. I'll just dry you off with its heat instead. You just get back to your team. My team? Kimiko looked around herself for a moment before itching the back of her head as her clothes slowly began to dry up. Oh yeah, right. I kinda forgot about them. Guess I should figure out what the hell happened. The girl silently berated herself for actually forgetting about the other two genin. Even if she didn't like them, she still needed the two of them. Kimiko was by no means a true sensor, but she knew enough about the basics of being one to feel a little ways around herself. Closing her eyes, she began to get a feel for the area around her. At first, she was only able to get a blurry feel of the area around her that she could easily see with her own eyes open before her field of view exploded outwards. Slowly she picked up on the direction from which she came. Curious about how far back she could sense, Kimiko pushed her field of view completely into the area. As her field of view stretched on, Kurama smiled. It seems you have gotten much better with your sensing since you were younger, Maiko-chan. I remember the time when you could barely sense a gnat flying about your head. Kimiko's only response was a small grunt. You would try so hard as I coached you on feel the area around you. It took you a while, but soon you were taking to it like a leaf to the rising wind. I bet that you could take on anyone. Kimiko abruptly yanked back and opened her eyes as she gasped for air. She clenched her fist as she slowly calmed her breathing. What was that? A strong dark presence had suddenly appeared down Kimiko's intended path and was too sickening to bear. It was twisted and seemed to try and ensnare Kimiko's senses. Whoever is in that direction is definitely not someone to be dealt with lightly. The amount of bloodlust and power that person holds, no. I can't even guarantee that what is over there is even human. Kurama said softly. Maiko-chan. Kimiko took a deep breath as she tilted her head back. I need those two alive to pass on to the next part of the exam, right? Kurama was silent as Kimiko trudged forward. If I die, I'm hunting Kakashi. Sasuke and Sakura sat in front of the person before them, shaking. Sasuke sat back and shook as he tried his best to harden his eyes into a glare. Sasuke said as he turned his head to look at the girl. His eyes widened as he took in the sight of the girl. Sakura was kneeling with her hands dropped between her legs and shaking much like he was. The only difference was the pure terror and tears that were spilling from the young girl's eyes. This is bad, Sasuke thought as he looked back towards the shinobi before them. We have to get away from this guy. There's no way we can get through this without being killed. The Kusa ninja chuckled darkly. He had unnaturally pale skin with long straight black hair and his lips painted a dark purple. He wore plain tan garbs with black pants and a thick rope-like purple sash wrapped around his waist. Serpentine-like eyes stared daggers at the two genin before him. "Can you two no longer move?" he asked yet stated. "What a pity," he sighed, "and I was looking forward to actually having something of a challenge here." With a disappointed look on his face, the ninja flicked two kunai at Sasuke and Sakura. Just as they began to near them, Sasuke activated his Sharingan and launched himself at his petrified teammate. Hitting the girl with his body, the young Uchiha took off with Sakura in his arms, barely being missed by the speeding kunai. Jumping and moving up about the large branches quickly, the boy found a large enough branch to stop on and set his teammate down before slumping down the trunk of the tree. He grunted in pain as he reached down and yanked the kunai he had plunged into his thigh out. As he pulled out the kunai, Sakura finally started to come to. Immediately upon noticing his injury, the young girl freaked out. "Sasuke-kun. Are you Auri?" Sasuke's swift hand covered the girl's mouth as he placed a finger to his lips before looking around the edge of the tree trunk panting. Quieting down, Sakura looked at Sasuke's face and could barely recognize the panic in his eyes. For Sasuke-kun to panic this much, she thought. I've never seen him get like this before. We truly are in that much danger, aren't we? The movement off to the side of Sakura caught her attention and made her gasp as she looked at what it was. With wide eyes she struggled against Sasuke's hand with muffled cries. Quickly she just shoved her crush's hand away from her face. "Sasuke-kun. Snake." Twisting about as fast as he could, Sasuke abandoned the tree branch they were on just as a large snake struck out at them. "Damn. I was panicking so much I didn't notice the snake sneaking up on us." Flipping through the air, the boy watched the snake prepare for another strike as Sakura dropped down to the one below. As the snake struck out once more, Sasuke found his senses clouded with fear. As the reptile opened its wide mouth, he saw the image of the Kusa ninja's face just beside. He roared as he unleashed a hail of shuriken onto the snake. "Get away." The projectiles tore into the mouth of the snake and took away most of its momentum. Sasuke landed not far from Sakura as the snake fell with a loud thump onto a lower branch. The two genin paused to get control of their breathing, only to be interrupted by a sinister laughter. Shocked, the two watched as a lump began to form on the head of the now dead snake. Slowly the lump opened up as the Kusa ninja gradually rose out of the snake's side. Slime covered the boy's body as he rose to a semi-standing position and chuckled. "You guys shouldn't relax for even a moment," he said while looking down. "Prey should always do its best to run away." He looked up suddenly with his snake-like tongue hanging low and pointed below his chin. "Especially when they're in the presence of a predator." Both Sakura and Sasuke took a step back from the boy's menacing look. The slime dripping from his body making him appear like an reanimated drowned body stalking them. Seeing their hesitation, the boy launched himself at Sasuke by wrapping his body continuously around the thick tree branch like a snake as he advanced forward on the frozen Uchiha. Eyes widening, Sakura's mind raced before she quickly snatched a handful of shuriken from her side pouch and launched them in front of the snake-like figure. Stopping just inches before being impaled by the weapons, the boy twisted his head completely around to look at Sakura. Shit. Yanking out a kunai frantically, Sakura barely blocked a punch from the Kusa ninja as he decided to launch himself at her instead of Sasuke. Seems this scared little mouse has more fight to her than I originally thought." Grabbing Sakura's leg as she tried to kick him away, the boy spun and slammed her into a nearby tree trunk. "Let's see how much of a beating it's going to take to get rid of all that fight," he said delightfully. Sakura threw a wild punch at the guy only for him to grab her wrist, pull her into a crushing headbutt. She staggered back and quickly tossed her kunai at him in desperation, only for him to seemingly phase through it with how fast he moved around it. Faster than Sakura's eyes were able to follow, the Kusa ninja landed two swift blows to the side of her ribcage with enough force to push her backwards. It was thanks only to the fact that she lost her footing and slipped onto her butt that Sakura saved herself from having both of her eyes impaled with two kunai that suddenly whizzed over the top of her head. Gritting her teeth, Sakura turned and attempted to run towards cover, only to have her path blocked by the hail of shuriken. Jumping back, the girl looked up just to have the heel of a shoe connect with the middle of her forehead. She bent backward and stumbled into the boy that was now in front of her. Grabbing her hair, he held the girl up as he began smashing his fist into her face over and over again before tossing her into the air. Sakura gasped as she flew up and slowly spun in the air. One moment she blinked to find herself looking towards the treetops, the next she found herself face to face with the Kusa ninja again. With a hard kick to the face, Sakura cried out as she flew back and slammed inside a tree branch. Her body crumpled in on itself as blood vomited from her mouth before she slowly began to fall forward. Stumbling, Sakura caught herself before falling to what would have been certain death. She wiped blood away from her mouth as she looked up tiredly. The boy was gracefully falling towards her with pleased grin on his face. There's so much power behind his attacks, she thought quietly as the boy got closer. A gleam came from the inside of his mouth as a blade slowly began to slide out. He's so much faster than me too. I don't even think that Lee Kid is as fast as this guy obviously is. Sakura looked down as he got closer and her vision began to fade. I'm so weak, Kamiko. Just as the Kusa ninja was just about to impale Sakura through her skull, a swift kick to the side of his head sent him veering off into the far below bushes of the forest floor. Sasuke grabbed Sakura around the waist as she fainted to prevent her from falling out of the branch. Breathing heavily, Sasuke looked at the unconscious girl's beaten face. The frown marred the young boy's face as he looked to where their enemy landed as he slowly stood back up to grin at the young Uchiha. What is this guy? A fall from up here would kill just about anyone if they couldn't catch themselves. Carefully resting Sakura's body down, Sasuke dropped down to land a few feet away from the Kusanin. Who are you? He demanded as he glared into the boy's eyes. You obviously aren't the average genin participating in the exams. Are you even a genin at all? The pale-skinned ninja chuckled as he covered his face with one hand. You are right, my dear Sasuke-kun. I am not a genin participating in these pointless exams that line you all up to be pitifully slaughtered. Sasuke gritted his teeth as the boy dropped his hand. As for who I am, you have yet to earn the right to learn that, Sasuke-kun, and it doesn't look like you will ever be if you let a girl fight your battles for you. Now come and die at my hands. With a wide grin, the Kusa ninja spread his arms wide as he laughed crazily. Sharingan blazing, Sasuke took up a fighting stance with weapons in both hands and a kunai in his mouth. Come to him and die, he says. HMPH, I don't care who he is. I must survive to kill my older brother. At least it is what I believed. Jumping into the air, he fired multiple kunai at the other boy who nimbly dodged each of them while rushing towards the young genin. If I can't risk my life in a situation like this, then how do I expect to kill someone like my brother? Using a tree to spin around, Sasuke vaulted himself forward past the oncoming boy with a spinning shuriken in hand. He spun around another tree trunk and loosed a spinning shuriken that the pale-skinned boy easily dodged, only to have to dodge a kunai that just barely scraped his cheek. Attaching his body to the bark of the tree, Sasuke surprised the other boy by yanking back hard on the thin strings that were attached to the ends of the shuriken that he had already dodged. As they came spinning furiously back, the boy opened his mouth and caught them all in his mouth before turning back to Sasuke with a slight grin before realizing what he was doing. With a wide grin on his face, the young Uchiha brought his hands together and clenched his teeth down hard onto the strings. Fire style. Fire Dragon's breath. Fire quickly rushed down the string connecting the two boys' faces and clung to the face of the pale-skinned one. It knocked the boy back and gave Sasuke time to catch his breath and feel a small amount of pride in how quickly he dominated an opponent he had previously thought too much to be handled. That was until the chuckling started up once more. Standing with flames burning on his face like it's an everyday occurrence, the boy let his head drop. To be able to use the Sharingan so well at your age, he said as scarred smile rested on his face. You truly are the one who carries the Uchiha blood in his veins. Just as I thought. I want you. Sasuke-kun, I had fun testing your power. But the glare from the pale boy, Sasuke felt himself freeze in place as he released a much larger kai than before. You two truly are brothers. I see power in your eyes that surpass even that of Itachi's. Upon hearing his adversary speak his brother's name, a small part of Sasuke snapped. Who the hell are you? He screamed with his Kekkei Genkai glowing brighter than ever before. If there was anything that could set the young man off, it was the mentioning of his elder brother's name. Especially when placing the two brothers in comparison to each other. The boy placed his hand on half of his face as it began to peel itself away. You showed me that there truly is a part of you that has earned the right to know my name. Very well then. My name is Orochimaru. If you want to see me again, then survive and pass these exams, my dear Sasuke-kun. Of course you will have to fight my men who have mixed their way into this exam. Placing his hands together, Orochimaru looked upon Sasuke superiorly. Until next time, Sasuke-kun. With a wide open mouth, Orochimaru stretched out his name and had his head raced towards the frozen in place Uchiha. Latching onto the boy's neck, he sunk his snake-like fangs into it. As he released the boy, a strange seal swirled into existence. His head slunk back as Sasuke fell to his knees and cried out in pain as he clawed at the mark. He screamed and screamed as Orochimaru watched until the boy's Sharingan faded away and he fainted. That mark is my parting gift unto you. Seek me out soon, Sasuke-kun. As he turned to leave, it was only Orochimaru's many years of experience on the battlefield that saved him from being sliced in half by the large incoming Zanbato that lodged its way into a tree's trunk. Twisting far above the blade in a spinning jump, Orochimaru glared down at the blade. That sword's Abusa. No, he is rumored to be dead. He would have no reason to appear at these exams anyways. And who? With a sigh, Kimiko dropped down onto the handle of her blade with a slightly puffed cheek. I was really hoping to kill you in one fucking blow, but you had to go and dodge my attack, didn't you? Stupid bastard. The grin slithered onto Orochimaru's face. He hung upside down from the bottom of a tree branch as he looked down at Kimiko. Well, standing there wouldn't have done much for my health, you see. That's something I am quite particular about keeping up. Ah, it can't be helped. Yeah, I guess that can't be helped, Kimiko shrugged as she hopped off the handle of her Seversword. You can't be blamed for not wanting to die. Ignoring Orochimaru's curiously watchful gaze, the young Uzumaki girl walked over to where Sasuke laid unconscious as he twitched. She grabbed the neck of his shirt and tossed him up as far as she could. Following after his body, she calmly passed the still present Orochimaru and caught Sasuke as he fell back towards her. Hefting him over her shoulder, she marched his limp form over to Sakura's body. As she approached the girl, Kimiko observed her wounded face and bruised arms. Did she actually try to fight back? The hooded girl placed Sasuke down next to their teammate before turning around to look down upon Orochimaru. You're still here, damn. He's still here. Go the fuck away. The false frown slid onto Orochimaru's face as he feigned disappointment. Oh dear me. Have I overstayed my welcome with your team? Things were just starting to get interesting. As he said the last part, his smile returned as he licked his lips slowly. Kimiko slightly raised an eyebrow. Dude, gross. Seriously. Kimiko rubbed the back of her head through her hoodie as she stuffed one hand in the pocket she pushed the Seversword into. She looked back at the person below her with a bored expression. Be that as it may, though, I believe you have toyed with my teammates enough. I don't exactly know what you did to them nor how much damage they truly suffered from you, but enough is enough. I need them to pass these stupid exams. So if you would be so kind, leave already. Kimiko's words wiped the smile clean off Orochimaru's face. He knew very little about the girl in front of him. No, what he truly knew was next to nothing about the girl. All he knew was the girl's name, and that was all he needed to know to have an interest in the girl before him. If she is the child of the women I think she is, then this girl just might prove somewhat entertaining. The thought brought a smile to his face. Some people would always be a target in his mind. Even if they were already dead, there was a good chance they had offspring. Ah, you're quite right, Kimiko-chan. I have spent enough time playing with your teammates and it's about time I left them be. In exchange, I believe that we could enjoy each other's company instead. I highly doubt that, Kimiko thought with a frown. Give it up, Maiko-chan, Kurama said with a slight irritation with Orochimaru's opposed familiarity with Kimiko. It didn't help that he tickled a part of memory that suggests he was a very pleasant human. This person is not going anywhere anytime soon without some prompting. I'm not sure of anything about him other than that you need to be cautious about how you approach him. There must be a reason he is sticking around to fight you other than the fact that you didn't just let him leave silently like you should have. Kimiko grunted. What's done is done. He won't leave now, and that is all that really matters at this point. He doesn't seem as intimidating when I'm not feeling the amount of malice that he emanates from himself. Plus I couldn't tell that he was leaving. I just reacted. Shifting her weight to the balls of her feet, Kimiko frowned slightly more as she let her hand fall from the back of her head. Well, if you're not just going to leave kindly, I guess we can entertain each other. Though it doesn't seem quite fair. You know my name already, yet I don't know yours at all. Chuckling, Orochimaru peeled away the burned skin from his face with ease. Unlike the girl, you intrigue me to the point that you seem like someone who might deserve to know my name. Strangely, unlike Sasuke-kun, you also seem like a much more entertaining opponent. So forgive me for not introducing myself to you earlier, my Kimiko-chan. My name is Orochimaru, and once again it was the man's years of battlefield knowledge that allowed him to dodge the sudden swipe of the Seversword that would have taken his head otherwise and move on to another branch. Frowning, Orochimaru looked at the girl that was now crouching in the spot he had previously been standing. Her body was slightly shaking as she held her arm out with her large blade, once again sticking into the trunk of a tree. Kimiko kept her head down as she momentarily stared at the ground before releasing a heavy breath. As she slowly stood back up, she yanked her weapon out of the tree and wiped it down to her side with her head still hung down. I thought that fucking hickey you left on Sasuke's neck looked kinda familiar to me. The way you moved to. A fang-filled grin spread onto the girl's face as her grip on the handle of the Seversword tightened and her hands became clawed. Orochimaru. The wretched traitor of the Leaf Village, I'm going to enjoy kicking your ass, and once I'm done beating the living shit out of you like a rag doll. Lifting her head suddenly, Kimiko met the legendary ninja's smirking face with a wildly smiling face and crimson red eyes. I'm gonna hand your head over to Anko Nichin and let her flush it down the toilet like the piece of shit you are. As the sun slid out of the sky lazily after an exhausting day, Anko flew through the forest as fast as she could push herself to go. It's almost night time, she thought to herself. I have to find him quickly. Once it has gone completely dark, I will be at a severe disadvantage against him. Growling, the snake mistress clenched her fist. But why? Why is he back in the village at a time like this? What is his purpose for returning now? Well, I guess it makes no difference to me. If you have come to this village, then we will settle things as they are now. You are now a handbook-esque dangerous person. I have to stop you even if it ends up costing me my life, and if that's not possible, then at most I must slow him down until the Anbu Black Ops arrive. That is my curse, Orochimaru. As she flipped over a particularly large tree branch, a picture fluttered out of Anko's pocket and landed on a small bird's nest. Anko abruptly stopped and turned around for the picture, only to watch as a slightly large snake came by and snatched away half of the picture and the curious bird that was next to it. Eyes widening, the women took off at even higher speeds. Dear Kami, please. Please let her be safe. Behind her, the half of the picture floated away on the wind with half a smiling Kimiko on it. Sasuke and Sakura laid silently next to each other in their dark worlds as the world around shook violently over and over again. At one point the two were nearly blown away from one of the area's more aggressive mini-quakes that sparked quite a vicious gust of wind. After that, Kimiko moved a ways away from her two teammates at the prompting of Kurama. Orochimaru slithered away as he was forced once again to avoid Kimiko's Seversword as she slammed it into the ground. The place at which the man was previously standing was torn apart in a nasty explosion of force. Launching herself out of the crater that she made, she swiped at the snake's face with a clawed hand as he leaned out of her range, and she spun her body to avoid being skewered by a handful of kunai that he unleashed. As soon as her foot touched the ground, the girl slammed the sword into the ground and began striking wildly. She once again swiped at his face, expecting him to duck under it as he did, and landed a vicious kick to the side of his head that sent him flying towards a tree. Charging after his body, Kimiko reared back with the open clawed hand. Mere seconds after Orochimaru slammed into the tree, Kimiko slammed her clawed hand into his abdomen. The tree base exploded into tiny shard-like splinters that flew in all directions in a puff of brown dust as the two flew on. Letting out a primal roar, the young girl drove Orochimaru forward with her through tree after tree. Wind style. Gale force palm. Pushing him forward with even more strength, the young Uzumaki child sent the snake sailing into the side of an amazingly large tree, with a gale of razor-sharp wind blazing after him. With a resounding explosion, the tree fell on top of Orochimaru as it lost its bottom half, along with many other nearby trees that piled on top of each other to make what appeared to be a makeshift grave from the ex-Konoha ninja. Kimiko turned a fiery gaze behind her as she felt Orochimaru's malice-filled presence appear behind her. Orochimaru looked upon the girl in front of him with a pleased grin. Kimiko's hood had fallen off her head as her blazing red hair whipped about her body in many directions. Her body was practically soaked up in the demonic flow of Kurama's chakra as she let her rage fill her. While standing with her back to the legendary ninja, but her head turned, the girl seemed truly demonic to Orochimaru. I knew the power of a Jinchuriki could be immense, but this girl is untrained and she is wielding the power quite skillfully. That or she is in just that big of a rage. Either way, she could turn out to be just as much, if not more, of a prodigy than Sasuke. Opening his mouth, the snake pulled a long blade out of his mouth before flicking it to the side. This has gotten much more interesting than I originally thought would be. Come to me and my Kusanagi. Show me more of your rage, Kimiko-chan, quickly, so that I can get back to make more little Ankos. He barely finished saying his ex-student's name before having to bring up his sword to defend himself from being sliced in half by the Seversword. Orochimaru was unsure as to how the blade suddenly appeared in the girl's hand again, but that didn't bother him in the least bit. For a moment the two were stuck in a power struggle. With a grunt and a small amount of focused wind nature, Orochimaru was able to momentarily force Kimiko away from him before the two engaged in a furious bout of swordplay. Their swords clashed against each other in close combat as the two both refused to jump back away from the other one. Anyone watching them from the outside would be astonished at the speed at which the two were striking out at each other. Neither was giving ground as their blades continuously met with resounding clashes. The force of their attacks forced out sharp gusts of winds that raged in all directions and scarred the earth beneath their feet and the nearby trees around them. Their blades could barely be seen as they swung them at each other, intent on ending the other's life with the very next blow. Orochimaru's eagerness grew with each passing moment of their bout. It had been much too long since he was last given the time actually enjoy testing the skills of another ninja on the battlefield. Kimiko may have been only a genin, and a young one at that, but the amount of bloodlust and power at her disposal was enough to compensate for that. As time went on, the snake progressively got faster and faster. It was soon at the point that Kimiko was no longer just attacking, but attacking and defending herself, and soon she was put completely on the defensive by the superior shinobi. Roaring again, Kimiko struck out with a kick that forced Orochimaru to jump back. Before his feet even touched the ground, the girl followed with a powerful swing of the Seversword that connected with the Kusanagi and sent Orochimaru skyward. She didn't even allow his body to finish accelerating upwards before appearing above him, and with an immense downstroke from the blade, Kimiko slammed her blade into the snake who blocked the attack once again, only to be thrown down towards the earth twice as fast as he was flying skywards. He slammed into the ground causing it to crack and splinter up. Still not finished, the girl charged down and plowed her fist with all of her strength into the face of the man. The ground momentarily cracked into large pieces around them before practically exploding all around them. As a large dust cloud kicked up, Kimiko stood with wide eyes as she searched for her target. Killing Orochimaru was the only thing that was running through her mind, and nothing else mattered to the girl. Him getting away from her was not an allowed option. As the dust finally settled, she continued looking for the man only to find no trace of him. She slammed her fist into the ground with a resounding thud as her anger only grew in size. As her anger grew, Kurama's chakra sped through her system even faster, causing the young girl to cough up blood and stumble, and that was all the opening that Orochimaru needed. Bursting up from the ground, the snake sent Kusanagi sailing into Kimiko's chest and through her lung. Shock registered on the girl's face as she flew back and was pinned against a tree. She roared in immense pain as she kicked about and tried to dislodge the weapon from her chest. Her primal screams mixed with the sight of her flailing about wildly enticed Orochimaru greatly. He slowly walked up to the girl and placed a hand on her cheek after a moment longer of watching her as the other hand slowly withdrew the blade from her chest. She stopped struggling as she glared death into the man's amused eyes. Everything about you screams that you are that woman's daughter. I hated everything there was to hate about your mother, my dear Kimiko-chan. You can't believe the amount of sadness I felt when I was cheated out of getting the pleasure of killing the women myself. I was going to settle with killing you in her stead, but you are so much more valuable than that just to be dealt away with like a piece of trash. Like Sasuke, you will soon seek me out. With a wide mouth, the man went to sink his fangs into the girl's neck as well, but was stopped as she took a deep breath and released a roar filled with hatred. With the power of Kurama's demonic energy behind it, the roar sent Orochimaru tumbling backwards with Kusanagi in hand. Kimiko dropped to her feet and stumbled momentarily before gripping the handle of her Seversword with both of her hands tightly and lifting it high above her head. Curiously, Orochimaru watched as he picked himself off the ground and observed the girl once more. The demonic chakra all about her body began growing at a much faster rate until it was to the point it covered the point of the blade above. The ground beneath the girl's feet cracked and began giving way from the pressure and previous abuse it had already faced. A chillingly wild grin split Kimiko's face in half as her body bent backwards. Run was the one instinct that sprung up in Orochimaru's mind and heart that told him that he was actually in danger as Kimiko suddenly swung the Seversword with all her strength, let loose one last scream, and slammed it into the ground. As the swinging arch of the blade came to an end, a fiery burst of scorching hot wind and demonic energy that tore apart anything was released. It raced forward with immense speed and power and tore apart everything in its path while leaving burn marks on everything next to it. Everyone in the village felt fear suddenly enter their hearts for a reason that many were unable to understand. All of them that were old enough had flashback of the Kyuubi attack many years ago. The only ones who would ever understand were those shinobi in Kinmoichi who could see the Forest of Death and the Tower of Red Death that nearly raced out of it before stopping just before the gates, though the heat was still strong enough to partially melt the gate. If anyone had wings to soar above the forest as the attack had been raging, they would have thought the attack nothing more than an oddly beam of spiky red fire. At the attack's origin, Kimiko wavered on her feet, she swayed back and forth as she used her sword to hold herself up. Kimiko, that was extremely foolish of you, Kurama said with obvious disappointment in her voice. You could have killed yourself with the amount of chakra you were taking from me. We have not trained for you to use it like that, and you shut the hell up, Kurama. That fucker finally paid for the shit that he did to Anko Onigin. So I don't give a hot damn about what could have happened when nothing fucking happened. Anger still burned furiously in the very pit of Kimiko's stomach as she stuffed the Seversword back into her pocket and stumbled about. Young lady, I will not have you speaking to me like. You are angry and I can understand that, but you need to watch that tongue of yours before it gets you in trouble. Oh, I'm so fucking scared now. The big bad fox is getting all mad with me. Someone call for backup, we have a serious piss fit going on here now. If you don't watch your tone, Kimiko. Kurama was not trying to argue with the young girl, but found no way past the girl's rage. Shut up. Shut up. Shut up. I don't need to listen to your shit. I did what had to be fucking done to beat the team who caused harm to someone precious. You know, the type of person I thought I was to you. More and more of Kurama's chakra racing through her system, consuming the young girl. Kimiko, you are precious to me. Just what you were doing was slight hurt, had entered the fox's voice, but Kimiko was unable to hear it. Was what the wrong thing to do, right? That's coming from a fucking demon who rampaged on a village, killed hundreds for no fucking reason. I fight to kill one person to protect someone, and you slaughter a bunch of innocents for no reason at all. Yeah, I'm totally the fucked up one here. Kimiko growled as she crossed her arms slowly and kneeled down. She was finding it somewhat hard to breathe, but cared little about that. That was uncalled for, Maiko ch. Don't you dare call me that, you bitch. I just killed a fucking S-classed shinobi on my own. Fucking S-classed. I thought you would be at least a small bit proud of me, but no, you just try to make me feel like shit for it. Fuck you, Kyubi. I don't need someone like you trying to do that to me. Stunned and hurt, silenced, answered Kimiko as struggled back to her feet. Just leave me the fuck alone. Slowly the demonic chakra consuming began to fade until it was completely gone. Turning around brought the girl face to face with a smirking Orochimaru. Hello, I can't leave you alone just yet, my dear. Grabbing the surprised and drained girl by the throat with his tongue, the snake lifted the girl's clothing to reveal her seal that was clearly showing on her stomach. Quickly flashing through a few hand signs and having one hand glow with sickly colored chakra, the man slammed his fingers and thumb into the girl's abdomen before dropping her to the ground. As the Kimiko coughed horribly and withered on the ground, Orochimaru smiled as he turned and walked away. That girl is a loose cannon. While she is quite entertaining, she is too unstable for me to leave unchained if I want my plans to go uninterrupted. Until we meet again, Kimiko-chan. Laying on her side, Kimiko coughed violently as her body shook horribly. Her sight was slowly beginning to fade. Damn, what did that fucker do to me? My chakra feels all wrong, and I can't feel, the girl gasped as she felt about herself frantically. Kurama. Kurama. Where are you? Hey Kurama. No matter how silent the fox demon would get, the two had become so connected on a mental and emotional level that Kimiko was always able to sense the woman inside her. Now she sensed nothing but emptiness. Kurama, come on, this isn't funny. Okay, I'm sorry. I was wrong and you were right, now stop playing around. Answer me already. Tears slid from her eyes as she rolled onto her back, and all that was left in her eyes was a small pinprick of light. Kuro-chan, please, I'm sorry, please answer me, Kuro-chan. Finally she fell into complete darkness. Please don't leave me, mother. Maiko-chan. Anko was being treated as many Anbu Black Ops members scattered about the forest in search of Orochimaru and to see if any genin were unfortunate enough to be caught up in Kimiko's rage-filled attack. Laying on her back to the side of the trench dug by said attack, Anko had severe burns that covered most of her right arm and side, along with a few other injuries from foolishly facing Orochimaru in her injured and weakened state. As the medic ninja attended to her wounds, the woman's mind drifted away. Maiko-chan, please be okay. The doctor said it would help, she thought as she did as she was told, but this is really uncomfortable and it hurts my throat even more too. Why does it have to be something so big? Pulling back a little, girl shook her head as she let out a ragged cough. Is this really gonna help my throat feel better, Dr. Kimura? I feel like it is making it worse, the little girl said in a rasped voice. I mean, I trust you and everything, but it really hurts. This is wrong. All of these treatments are always wrong. Why do I keep letting him do this? A tear rolled down the young girl's face as she looked up at the doctor. He had short light brown hair with emerald green eyes. He wasn't a very tall man and appeared to be quite thin under his usual doctor's attire. The man was possibly in his late 20s or early 30s judging from his looks. Having never felt the need to ask his age, the girl was unsure of it. The pain had become unbearable. The young girl began to cough uncomfortably. She tried to pull her head away again, but the doctor held it in place with all his might. Let me go. It hurts. It hurts. With her tiny hands balled into tight fist, the girl pounded on the man's sides as hard as she could to help push her away. Her cries were muffled as she tried to free herself. Just as she was starting to finally pull away from the older guy, he yanked her forward with all her strength. Eyes widening, tears flowed freely from the girl's as she stared up at the grinning doctor's face. She could feel a thick warm liquid fill her throat in random spurts. The girl clawed at his sides as she began to choke. She tried frantically to breathe but was unable to even swallow the disgusting matter in her throat. Just as the little girl's eyes closed all the way, the doctor let go of her head and pulled away from her. He watched as the girl slumped forward off of the chair he had her kneeling in and onto the floor. She laid on the floor unmoving as Kimura looked down at her. He nudged her side with the tip of his foot and frowned as he rolled her over. Didn't expect you to start choking to death. Well, almost to death. Reeling back, Kimura slammed his foot into the girl's side. It lifted her slightly off the ground as she gasped. The young girl softly cried in pain as the doctor tossed down a few dirty rags. I can't have the floor getting all dirty. The Hokage wouldn't be pleased with the mess. Clean it. He sat in a chair as the girl slowly grabbed the rags and began cleaning the mess up. She looked at it, the white substance on the floor, through blurred eyes as she slowly scrubbed at it. The girl found it hard to breathe with her mouth closed and let it hang open. A bitter taste filled the girl's mouth that slightly overpowered the coppery taste of blood dripping from her mouth. Ow, my throat still hurts you. Ow, promised it would help, the girl pleaded in a rusty voice. The foot was placed on the tearful girl's head. I said it would help as long as you were a good girl. Good girls do as they are told and don't strike out at those in charge. Because you were a bad girl, it didn't work. We'll just have to do it again later. I can only give this treatment so many times in a day. Kimura chuckled as the girl continued cleaning with the dirty rags. She had already gotten all of the white mess up and was repeatedly wiping the same spots just below her mouth as blood and drool fell from it. The girl wished she could just leave. She always hated having to see him, but Yuji and Yukai were still in training and could only do minor things like bandaging and shots. The child closed her eyes. Am I really that bad of a girl? I don't mean to be. I just don't want this anymore. I want. Before the girl could figure out the end of her thought, she felt a foot fall sideways from her head. The girl opened her eyes back up and reeled back with a gasp. There was blood all across the floor and wall before her. Looking to the side of her, she saw Kimura's bare foot laying next to her, with a piece of a bloodied bone sticking out the top of it. It was speckled with blood on it. Letting out a strangled cry, she kicked away the foot and turned to run, only to slip into a large puddle of blood. The child cringed and shook as she curled into herself before slowly inching her body forward. She didn't know why, but she knew that she shouldn't look up. That getting out of the room she was in would make her safe and clean. Getting up onto her hands and knees, the girl crawled frantically towards her freedom. Just before she could get within reaching distance, the door something fell in front of her, splashing blood into her eyes. Quickly rubbing away the blood, she looked down at what fell before her and let the loudest scream that had ever left her mouth as her world began violently shake. Kimiko. Kimiko. Hey Kimiko, wake up already. Gasping for air, Kimiko's eyes flew open as she arched her back and clawed the ground with her hands. The girl gurgled slightly as someone shook her body aggressively. Kimiko, what's wrong? Pull yourself together already. Why ga? The person holding the young Kunoichi's shoulders was clotheslined to the ground as the girl shot up suddenly. She quickly straddled the person's waist while wrapping a hand around their throat. The other hand snatched out a kunai to plunge into the defenseless person's head. Hands grabbed Kimiko from all around and held her in place. She twisted her head to her side to come face to face with Sasuke's eyes. What the hell do you think you're doing, dope? The girl looked at the boy blankly before slowly looking around her at the other people holding her back. There was a boy with eyes that vaguely reminded her of Hinata. He was obviously a Hyuga. One with prepackaged superiority complex from the look in his eyes. Another boy held onto her legs and with bowl haircut. She immediately knew his name to be Rock Lee from the cards that the guy with the glasses had. At least she hoped no one else would wear that horribly green jumpsuit. The last person holding her was Choji. His grip wasn't too tight on her, but the look in his eyes told her he wouldn't hesitate to crush her if needed. The boy's hands were enlarged and wrapped around her waist. Choji, could you maybe let me go? The rest of you too. It's really weird having all of you touching me. Choji and Lee gave the girl looks of uncertainty, while Sasuke and the Hyuga just glared at her. Please. None of the boys moved an inch. To be honest, she was sure their grip on her was tightening. The fact was starting to piss her off. Not only that, but the ground beneath Kimiko was constantly shifting in a really annoying way, while there was a slight scent of snake in the air. Wait, the ground is shifting. Kimiko looked down at the ground to see Sakura's squirming form beneath her. The girl looked pretty beat up. Much more so than what Kimiko could recall having seen her be. Her hair also appeared to be much shorter than what Kimiko remembered as well. What the hell happened to you? Sakura gasped as she struggled to breathe, and Kimiko noticed her hand wrapped tightly around the other girl's throat. Shocked, Kimiko slowly released her grip on the girl's neck. When her grip had fully relaxed away from the other girls, the boys released their grip on her and backed away. All except Sasuke, who positioned himself between his two female teammates. His usual stoic glare challenging the girl in front of him. Behind, Sakura coughed and sputtered as air was allowed to re-enter her lungs. What's your issue, dope? Your head gets split open or something? After the confusion on Kimiko's face cleared away, the girl narrowed her eyes dangerously at the Ichigo. She leaned back slightly with a hand placed on her hip as she looked at the boy before her. No, it's not, but if you don't step away from me, then someone's head will be. Sasuke clenched his fist and hardened his glare at the girl. The tension between the two quickly escalating. Boy. That's enough, you two. Now isn't the time for you guys to be getting overly troublesome. Kimiko pouted slightly as she turned her head to look at Shikamaru. He was standing off to the side of her next to a wide-eyed Ino. And it doesn't matter which one of you started being troublesome first, just stop it. Kimiko frowned and grumbled under her breath as she turned and walked away from Sasuke, effectively killing the tension. She looked back to see Sakura being helped to her feet by Sasuke as Ino jogged over to the other girl. The redhead leaned against a tree and sighed while running a hand through her hair. What the fuck is going on here? She mumbled to herself before pulling her hood over her head. The girl let out a shaky breath and rubbed her throat softly. And why did I have that nightmare? It's been years since I last had one of those that was that strong. As hard as Kimiko thought, she was unable to come up with any clear reason for experiencing old nightmares again. As she continued surfing her mind for an answer, a hand fell on her shoulder. Hey, you alright, Kimiko? Shikamaru asked as he leaned against the tree next to her. That was completely unlike you just then. You've never just attacked someone like that for waking you up before. Even if being woken up is completely troublesome. Kamiko placed her hands behind her head and shrugged with complete indifference. I'm just fine. Sakura should just be more careful of who she attempts to wake up in certain ways. I mean hell, was she trying to shake me to death? How long have I been out anyways? Shikamaru shook his head while being glad they were out of earshot. You look like you were having a pretty insane nightmare, a girl said as she approached the two. The girl had two buns on either side of her head that matched the color of her dark brown eyes. She wore a pink sleeveless blouse with red trimming and yellow fastening buttons down the middle. Dark green pants covered her legs with blue sandals to protect her feet. The girl stopped in front of the Nara and Uzumaki as she placed her hands on her hips. Your friend seemed to be pretty worried about you when she tried to wake you up. Don't you think you should apologize for attacking her for no reason? I mean, she is already starting to bruise. An attitude-filled pout adorned Kamiko's face as she looked at the other girl. A quick once-over made the redhead grunt inwardly. From the way she holds herself, this girl must think she's hot shit. And who might you be again that I should care about what you have to say? An elbow to the side made Kamiko glare at a certain sighing Nara. The girl took a step forward as she glared into Kamiko's eyes. My name is Higurashi Tenten, a member of Team 9, or Team Guy to any who sees it differently. I'm also a genin of Konoha just like you. The only difference being Tenten stepped forward until she was chest to chest with Kamiko. I've got much more experience than you. I can tell just from looking at you that you think you're pretty damn good, and maybe you're right, but I can assure you I'm better. So apologize to your teammate before you piss me off. Kamiko blinked with wide eyes as she looked at Tenten before they slowly began to narrow. She didn't expect the other girl to just come straight at her the way she did. The redhead was actually not used to being confronted on the level that she just was, and for some reason she found it pissed her off. Before I piss you off, huh? Well, I don't care about that cause you're still no one important. I'm not apologizing to anyone for anything. Kamiko gave Tenten a heavy shove to the chest and made the girl stumble backwards as she stepped forward. Especially to someone I don't really like because someone I already don't like told me to, so leave me alone before you figure out how pissed off I am already. As Tenten regained her balance, the girl's face turned a deep shade of crimson red. With shaking fists she started slowly back towards the redhead who had pushed her away. The tension between the two females picking up with each and every step. Tenten's hand slid to the weapons pouch on the side of each of her legs as she ready to attack. Tenten, that's enough. Kamiko lazily let her eyes drift to the voice's source while Tenten whipped her head around. The girls looked at the Hyuga as he looked straight at them while somehow managing to also look down on them. Tenten went to argue with the boy only to be cut off. We don't have the time to waste on a nobody like her. You could easily beat this girl anyways. Save the loser's humiliation for a time when it's actually needed. It's time to go. Tenten gritted her teeth as she glanced back at Kamiko before walking away towards her green-clad teammate. She grabbed the boy Lee by the collar of his shirt as she passed by him with a scowl on her face. Tenten, what is wrong? The look on your face is most unyouthful. The girl just threw the boy a quieting glance before stomping out of the clearing they were in with the Hyuga following after them calmly. As they left, Sakura, Choji, and Ino watched them with confused looks on their faces. Having been just a bit too far away to hear or take any notice of the confrontation between the two kunoichi. Sasuke on the other hand was glaring straight at Kamiko. He had seen the entire argument between the girls and was curious as to what had transpired between them. Kamiko stood unmoving as she looked at the spot where the Hyuga boy used to be. She was hoping that the Hyuga would mysteriously reappear back in the spot he was in and suddenly catch a blaze from the intensity of her glare. Of course she knew it wouldn't happen, but a girl can dream. You can let me go now, Kamiko said with a sigh as she closed her eyes. Slowly standing from a kneeling position, Shikamaru released his hold on the girl in front of him. He watched the girl as her body relaxed and she leaned back onto the tree next to him. Team Guy, huh? What was that? You had to go and pick a fight with somebody as soon as you woke up, didn't you? Twice for that matter. Shikamaru scratched the side of his head while he placed a hand on his hip. Why couldn't you just apologize? It's simply really. I don't like that girl and won't let her boss me around just because she feels she can. Kamiko stretched and pushed away from the tree they were leaning on before turning to look at her friend. Plus, if I apologize it's like I'm admitting that I was wrong for what I did. And you weren't. The two friends looked at each other for a moment before they both sighed and looked towards the sky. Let's not worry about it anymore. This entire situation is just far too troublesome. Kamiko just shrugged in response. And we're halfway into the second day of the test.